is staying right here, where vacation is staycation, staying safe, where focus is surviving minutes, hours, days of anxiety. Step away and say hello to the latest exhibition of the National Gallery. Say hello to Alchemy by Cayman's premier sculptor, native son Horacio Esteban. Lose yourself in moments of geology meeting history, meeting botany, meeting zoology, meeting art. Where Caymanite and coral and unearthed cedar of thousands of years strike a pose in art. Bring your family. Leave your stress at the doors. Wellness, renewal, mental peppermint. Alchemy at the National Gallery, supported by Rotary Central Community Service. Rotary opens opportunities.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dan. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller. I will be hosting Wednesday's Talk Today from today going forward. I welcome calls this afternoon, not in our first segment of the show, but if you do want to give us a call a little later, please write down the numbers 1-800-534-8255 or 949-8037, 949-6990, or you can WhatsApp us at 925-3261. Particularly in this first segment of the show, you can WhatsApp us. This afternoon, we'll be having, until 1 o'clock, we welcome Victor Crumbly, Chris Hedome, and Rashad Rankin to discuss the plight of home ownership for young Caymanians. What are the barriers young people face in buying land or property? How have they overcome these barriers, and how is foreign investment in property making things even more difficult? And what can be done to make home ownership a reality? From 1 to 2 p.m., we have Natalie Urquhart, the director for the National Gallery. She'll be here to discuss the latest exhibition, 2020 Vision, Lockdown Experiences from the Cayman Islands. And from 2 p.m., we welcome the Money Sense host, Simon Caudry. He'll be here discussing the big upset to Wall Street from last week with the implosion of the GameStop stocks and how social media played a major part in moving the market. We're going to throw it back for the disclaimer and a quick message, and then we'll get right into the show.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow,
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Welcome back. As mentioned in the intro, we are going to be taking the first 45 minutes of today's show to talk about home ownership for young Caymanians. What do people have to go through in the process of buying their first home, or perhaps even a second home, an investment property, or even just buying land? We're welcoming Victor Crumbly of the Youth Services Unit, and we have entrepreneurs Chris Hedome and Rashad Rankin. How are you doing this afternoon, gentlemen?
I'm doing good.
I'm doing pretty good.
I'm doing good too. Thank you for having us.
Excellent. Thanks for joining me. It's important that we have this discussion because I know it's an important thing. It's one of the major life goals for most people, I would say, is owning a home, having your own home. That's a huge goal, and if you're able to accomplish that, a lot of people just feel relieved. I can tell you I'm still renting at this point in my life, and I would love to own a home or property and go from there, but it is a bit of a struggle. But for Caymanians, I'm hearing a lot more that there's a lot more barriers in place. So if you can share with me, if you do own property, or if not, if you're searching for it, and what are the steps that you have to take in first looking for a place?
All right, let's go, Chris.
So, I mean, one of the big things I feel that's not readily available right now is just more information, just straight up accurate information on how to go through the process. I mean, we're always having to rely on friends and family who's already had the property, went through the whole process, but every time it changes, every time what's available also changes. So it's just understanding the process, understanding what the closing fees are, understanding what the cost is or what the outlay is. Originally, I feel isn't readily available until you have that first conversation with the bank. You know what I mean? You want to go into the bank with a little bit of knowledge, but a lot of times we kind of defer to the financial institutions to give us all the information we need, and that's not always the case.
Yeah, I agree. First step I would recommend is, let's say, going to the bank, finding out from the bank how much you exactly qualify for, because that's a big thing. You can go and find a piece of land or find a house that you love, speak to the agent, but then you turn around, go to the bank, and you can't qualify. So personally, that has to be the first step I feel anybody should take in regards to buying a property, and like Chris said, just have more information readily available to everyone, because a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, Rashad mentioned a good point in terms of going to the bank, seeing what you qualify for after you perhaps have checked out a piece of land or an apartment, and given the last year in particular in Cayman, you don't really have that time frame anymore because things are just going so quickly. So if this is something that you're going to undertake, you really need to go and speak to the bank first and foremost, and see what their requirements are. And then also to check out various banks. Different banks also obviously have different incentives, different type of requirements and things like that. But if this is something that you're thinking about, you're gearing towards, the first thing you have to do is go and speak to the bank to see where you fit at. And then also to Chris's point, you need to go and speak to other individuals, your family members, your friends. Every time I speak with someone, you learn a little bit more, or you learn something to, I don't want to say finesse the system, but to finesse the system a bit. And that's one of the conversations I had with Rashad recently, where he went through a process a couple years ago, and something came up to him that he had no clue about, where he was sort of caught off guard. But then now having that knowledge from him, is something that I can impart to other young people as well, right? So you're not going to get this in a class, you know what I'm saying? You're not going to get it at high school. You're not going to get it in college. That education comes from speaking to many different people, different arenas, going to the chamber website, going to the bank's website, just a variety of things, and then you culminate and make your own sort of decisions or whatever from that. But it's not going to come to you straight in a package. I guess is what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
Like you said, because the banks are not going to give you all the information at play.
Mm-hmm.
But you might have to just go and pull it from different spots.
Yeah. Rashad, would you be comfortable in sharing what that big learning lesson was?
Yeah, no problem. Just to jump on on Victor's point real quick. Find a good agent as well. For sure. Because that is key. They can make the process so much easier, because some agents out there actually really care about helping you find a place, helping you make sure the price is right. But then there's others, just focus on money and whatnot. But yeah, just find you a good agent. Speak to friends, family members that have sold a place before or bought one and had a good experience with their agent. And then, I would recommend going that route as well.
So you wouldn't recommend doing it on your own, independently?
No, not your first time around.
Correct, yeah.
Not your first time around. Maybe if you're a seasoned investor, then definitely, but your first time around, get yourself an agent.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also, too, because, we have this idea of being independent, do it on my own, self-made millionaire, let me save on a commission here or there. But remember, you are getting a certain type of expertise. And there's nothing wrong with perhaps giving up something to get something in return. And to Rashad's point, you might find someone who's going to show you the real ins and outs of the game and show you why you perhaps missed out on the property because of what something else is going on behind the scenes in that particular industry. And also, too, just in terms of things that don't come to market, they don't get a chance to come to EK. They don't get a chance to come online. They're gone that quickly. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a who you know business, or it's a who you know world.
You're so right.
We're gonna come out to Rashad's story, but I just wanted to tap in on that, because I think people forget that part of the network, and you don't really get that in school, right? No, so that's why.
So tell us your story.
So like in 2018, I bought a property via foreclosure, And
was this your first?
Yeah, it was my first property.
Okay.
So I had some money saved, so I withdrew a very minuscule amount from my pension.
Okay.
Right. Let's just say, let's start a random figure. Let's say I withdrew $1,000. Right.
Okay.
Let's fast forward. Fast forward like 2-3 years later, I get an offer on the property. So I decide to sell it. So I reach out to the agent who found me the buyer, and I was like, can you check something for me? I'm like, I borrowed on my pension 2 years ago, and do I have to pay it back, or can I just sell the property and it'll be fine? She did her research, came back, and she was like, no, it's fine, you can go ahead and sell the property. So I checked with another agent, and they told me the exact same thing. So I went ahead, sold the property. The guy went to Lands and Survey to try to transfer the property in his name, but there was a hold on it. And the hold was with the pension and the labor board. So they ended up sending me over there, and the lady brought to my attention that whenever you sell a property, you either have to pay back your pension first, or they're gonna hit you with 10% of the sales price.
Oh,
so
wow.
Let's say I borrowed $1,000 from my pension. Let's say I sold the property for $100,000. 10% of that is $10,000. So now $10,000. I have to put back $10,000 into my pension, even though I only borrowed $1,000. But if I knew that beforehand, I would have just went and paid back the $1,000, and then I would have had like $9,000 extra,
Right,
So,
yeah.
but that just taught me, and like I tell like all of my friends now, if you have ever borrowed on your pension, make sure you either go and pay that back, or you factor that into your sales price. And a lot of people did not necessarily know that, and they didn't know that they hit you with that type of price point at 10%. And it wasn't like I couldn't it wasn't like I could go back on anything, because we had already went through the whole process. The bank put the money in my account, my mortgage was paid off, everything was done, and it was like nothing was caught until the final stage when he tried to transfer the land, and then they were like, yeah, we're gonna hit you with 10% of the sales price. And I was like, I should have known this from before.
Exactly. Were you able to, did you end up selling it, or did you?
Yeah, I had to end up taking, I don't consider it a loss, because even though I had to put the money back into my pension, you're still able to draw on it again later on. So I don't consider it a loss, but at the time, not knowing that was a pretty big hit at the time.
When you say that you were able to still draw on it later on, is that in reflection to the last year we've had, knowing that we could withdraw from our pensions?
Yeah, so all this happened after I already withdrew on my pension.
Okay.
So I took it out, then I had to put all of it back in.
Right. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, it's still a benefit, I guess, because if I want to go draw on another property, I can just go back to my pension. But now I know a lot better that I'm going to pay that off.
Yeah, it's interesting that you guys brought up the whole relationship with your agent and finding the right one initially, because that would have led to you understanding that, hold on, okay, under the pension requirement, I got to do this and this before X, Y, and Z happens. And had you, like you said, had you had that information or an agent who was aware of the process, then you could have just been like, okay, cool. Yeah. But now you've learned a very valuable lesson that now we're able to share with everybody. Yeah. So I mean, it's a two-edged sword, right?
Funny thing is, I went back and looked at the pension form after the whole thing, and it's on the form, but it's in some tiny writing that says,
well, that's what you have to read.
You'll have to pay back this and this, and I was like, really? Like,
all terms and conditions are at -4 font. You can't see anything, but that's
always
how they get you there.
Always.
No, Chris, what has your experience been like? Because I know I met you when we lived in the same neighborhood, and our dogs got along, and then you're like, I bought a house and I'm moving. And
my story was more of a situation where at the time we had the hurricanes in the Caribbean, and they weren't affecting the rest of the island. But what happened, being that the tax jurisdiction that all the quote unquote havens were subject to, anyone working in those areas still had to operate, but they couldn't leave the jurisdiction to do all this stuff. So people who were working in BVI and Bermuda and all those other islands weren't able to move anywhere else but to Cayman. So what happened then, within the 6-month period, all the rental stock was bought up, quote unquote. So therefore, landlords started saying, hold on, all these people are coming here and they're going to be here for a year or some bit, because obviously the recovery process is going to take a while. These businesses need to run and work from home. So we actually had a work from home scenario happening a year or two before the pandemic, where you had people coming from different parts of the Caribbean just to work from here so that they can stay within the region. What that did on the other part of the rental economy now is push the rent up, supply and demand.
Right.
Demand is there, but there's no supply. So our landlord comes around for the first time in 2 years and says, hey, we want to talk to you about your lease. And I was like, wow, you mean the amount of times I've been trying to call you about the lease? Now you want to talk about the lease and wanting to increase the lease. So I said to myself, we did some numbers and we looked at it, and we did crunch numbers on a mortgage versus paying rent. We were like, we're paying a mortgage now. Yeah. So we said, all right, let's look at it. We went through the process. We saw a few places. And it's interesting because in the UK, the system that they have is a closed bid system. So you kind of trust that the agents have your best interests at heart, but then the agents are also regulated in the UK. So therefore, you could say 3 people put your bid in, and you were in there, and your bid wasn't the highest, XYZ. Now, the recourse I can have, I can appeal that in the UK and be like, hey, I don't believe this process was fair. And then the regulating body will then open the bids and be like, okay, yes, you're going to get dinged. The agent's going to get dinged because you were lying. You wanted to get the higher bid. So therefore you doctored it to make sure that person can. So a lot of what I'm hearing is just that, people are saying, hey, I put in for an offer, but I was outbid. But then the property came back on the market, and then I put a bid back in, and that's what happened with me. The property I'm at right now, we bid on it. We pushed our bid up to as far as we could, and then they were like, hey, it didn't work out, and then the financing didn't go through on the property. 2 weeks later, property was back on there. We were like, all right, let's go for it. And then we got it within a month or two. So I was just kind of surprised that, just because they didn't lock in at the highest price, they didn't go back down the line and say, hey, we had 2 other bids, who would be interested? Now, in the UK, that's what they would have done. Here, they just threw out the whole thing and remarketed it as if fresh. Whereas if you were a salesperson, you would have said, hold on, your financing didn't fall through, or if there were real bids involved, financing didn't go through, all right, I got 2 other people who are cash buyers, blah, 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 let's go back in. No.
Let me go to the next best offer. Let me not waste more time doing this. But they were, I guess, looking to get the highest bid, or higher than it was already.
And they only got $2,000 over asking with us, just because we were just like, it didn't make any sense why we went through that whole song and dance, and then you didn't even come back to us and say, hey, we were looking, that's the reason why we found it again. So that was just interesting to see that, you don't necessarily understand, like, we didn't have a relationship with the listing agent, but our the property agent that was working with us, they were the ones who were aware of what's going on and, giving us information as we go. Obviously, if your agent is not a listing agent, there's some information they're not going to know. So you have to understand, like, what leverage your agent actually has in that scenario. Now, if your agent is a listing agent as well as the agent advertising and pushing the property, you're in perfect position, because then that person has a direct link with the owner. So you're just like, okay, I want to buy this.
They're already bartering for you in a sense on your behalf.
Correct.
Yeah, whereas know what you can do.
Exactly. Whereas the listing agent is just saying, okay, I got 5 other agents. I don't know. I don't necessarily know how many bids the property is under if I'm an owner, and as a consumer, I don't know what my competition is.
It's a blind bidding war.
Correct. So that was my experience. It was just really interesting. I was successful in getting the property, but it was just really weird to see that plan out when I used to be an agent myself in the UK, so I know what the process is in terms of selling it. So when I saw all of that happening, I was like, wow, that's tricky.
Victor, yourself.
It's a murky game.
I think you told me you were searching for property right now.
Yeah, it's I'm dating properties. I would probably say it's been about close to 2 years. About 2 years, got really close to the property. Did the song and dance with the banks, gave blood work, the financial histories, all those kind of things, and I think the valuation came back lower than the asking price, and that was always also sort of a bump in the road. But
doesn't that work out in your favor?
If you and the persons can agree, but I think sometimes when you're listed with agents, there's contractual agreements that people want to keep in place for a certain reason. But it wasn't like I'm in a dire situation. It wasn't like the dream property or whatever. But it can be a long process. And because you're talking about expanding families, do you want to be by the water? You want a pool? Do you want to, it's just so much. And then there's also a lot of, we got really close to some other properties, but they go quick. And then I wanted to take the gamble with COVID last year. Just wait a couple more months, and then go and look, because that is the advice that you're getting in certain circles. Is that coming to the new year 2021, that there may be some excess on the market that you can go and grab up. But as of what we're seeing, I went to look at a property a couple months ago, and it just wasn't for me. But in speaking with the agent a couple of days later, someone from overseas is buying it based off of photos. You know what I'm saying? So you can't even really compete with that in some respects. So I have to worry about Rashad or Chris purchasing property here. But now globalization and what's going on around the world, people want to be in a nice safe haven. During the COVID pandemic, they have the cash on hand. They're like I said, they're purchasing off of a FaceTime call. You know what I'm saying? So,
or virtual home tours,
like
that, which is a thing.
Yeah. And it's difficult because I do sympathize with young people in particular who want to see more assistance given to them. But again, in a capitalistic society, it's a free market. It's just supply and demand. And right now we have a lot of properties that are coming online. And you just look at the price point, and it's like, wow. But again, if I'm doing a development, and also keep in mind the cost of living here is extremely high. If I set it at X price and someone buys it at X price,
but what I've seen,
that's what it is.
For so many years here, what I've seen with the trend with that, so developers, sometimes you can buy straight from the developer, for example, but a lot of the time, those people that are getting those, what do they call it? Pre-development prices? I forget what it's called.
Prefab prices.
Pre-construction.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the time it is real estate agents, so they buy it,
Yes.
and it's crazy to me because all of a sudden it's 50,000, 60,000 more, and it's those 1 bedrooms, maybe 2 bedrooms, 1 bedroom and den, and it's in most of the condo developments that I'm seeing, and. There's a condo development going up. I'm not going to call the names, but 500 square feet, 1 bedroom, for 240,000 CI.
Yep.
500 square feet.
Yeah.
That's tiny.
But you have to think of the amenities.
That's what they tell you. That's a closet, man.
I don't know. I don't want to live above shops or have a cafe in my development. I personally don't want that because that's so much traffic and a whole bunch of people coming into your living area. I would want a little bit more peace, unless I'm going to go into a high rise. That's a little different, right? There's a little bit more restriction for that. But just give you an example like that. And you brought up the foreign investors. So I've been seeing this trend. I mean, I've been living here over 15 years now, and it's the fact of how much foreign investment is coming, which is great for the economy, but coming from Vancouver, which is, I think, one of the most beautiful cities in the entire world, you cannot buy a home, even a small, rundown home within the city of Vancouver for less than $1 million, and you're getting a decrepit home. It has to be completely renovated. It is run right down to the bare bones. And that is because Vancouver has not put any restrictions, and it's been an influx. We have a huge Chinese population, a great Chinese culture there. And it's been mostly Chinese buyers coming into Vancouver, not living there, but just buying up the city, jacking the prices up, and people are being forced out to far suburbs, and yet their family, their schools, their jobs, they're traveling 2 hours to work, to, and then from. And it's pretty insane. So I saw that trend happening here. And in speaking to a couple people about this topic, I'm like, okay, what can we do? How can we, I don't want to stop foreign investment in property at all. You know, I think we need it, but how can we restrict it? How can we limit it? And looking at one of our neighboring countries, Bermuda, because their GDP is quite high as well. It's known as a wealthy Caribbean country, great standard of living as well. They had a Bermuda Immigration and Protection Act from 1956 that now amendments have been made that allow overseas buyers to buy real estate in Bermuda. But before 2019 or before 2015, when the amendments happened, as a foreigner, you could not buy any property in Bermuda unless you were buying from another foreigner. But it had to hit something called an annual rental rate. So if your home within the year was not being rented out at a certain, I think it was over 150,000, you cannot buy that property. You are just out of the market. So you were looking at that time, and this is coming from a New York Times article, the annual rental value in Bermuda, if it was, it had to be 153,000 or higher. And that translated to a minimum selling price of a home that was $3 million for foreign buyers. Now, it was to help local people be able to buy property within their own island, right? However, this also limited residents, Bermudians, from being able to buy as well, because it just, a lot more very expensive homes were being built more than anything else.
Yeah, for sure.
Bermuda did change in 2015. They made amendments to that law, so they are allowing foreigners to buy. However, there's still a lot of restrictions. You need to get a license from the government. You need to get another license from them to be able to rent.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of restrictions there. And then in 2018, as cited from a BBC World News article, New Zealand banned non-residents from buying existing homes in the country in an effort to make properties more affordable for actual residents. The only clause there is that 2 countries are allowed to buy, and those are Australians and one other country. I didn't note them, and that's only because they have a free trade agreement with New Zealand.
Probably Tasmania or something like that.
I don't think it was that, but it was in one of those countries down there. Nice. And it's looking at it that New Zealand's a pretty big country.
Yeah.
And as we know, a very smart country. It's a great place to visit and live. Great standard of living as well. But they have seen what the property value is doing to their residents there. And my question is, why can't we have in Cayman some sort of restriction to foreign investment in property? How do you see this hurting you guys?
Honestly, because right now it's definitely a seller's market right now. So, and you can tell who a lot of the developers cater into with the type of developments, the price points and whatnot. So I can't knock on a developer for saying, okay, I'm going to take advantage of the market and sell and make my money, because that's everybody's goal. But what the government, I feel, could do potentially, a simple form of restriction is, okay, let's say a developer decides to build $1 million development on West Bay Road. For him to get that, he should also have to do a development, a much more localized, like, development with lower prices. Like, if you're going to come here and build $60 million, condo complex, build something on a much smaller scale that, local people can afford, because the one person we did have that was doing that, the Batman, let's call him, of, selling things for local is no longer doing that, so government should probably step in and just not necessarily demand it of these developers, but some of the developers as well should necessarily think about what they're doing to the island. Granted, build your amazing developments, $1 million developments, kudos to you, but also think about the young Caymanians, the kids, your grandkids and stuff, that when you're building these $1 million places, they're not going to be able to get nothing later on. So government should,
which is what's happening right now.
Government should definitely put pressure on them to say, okay, if you are going to build $1 million development, do something as well that's going to be catered to locals, because we know these $1 million ones, not every local going go to the bank and qualify for $1 million.
Right.
You know, so
or some sort of restriction on land purchase, like percentage of land purchase is going to foreign investors and developers.
Yeah.
And we've seen where in the past where overdevelopment in one area means a lack of development in another area, hence social issues and other things that will arise.
Correct.
And I think, forgive me, but was it Mr. Roy Barton? He had a great comment one day. It's like, when you're in that $1 million home, someone's going to come knocking one day, and that's not from a $1 million home.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So so you kind of have to think of the fellow or your fellow man as well. And again, it's just like Rashad's point. It's developers. That's your aim, is to make the money. But there has to be some oversight coming in from somewhere, i.e. perhaps government, where there's some task force or some commission that will look into recommendations to sort of curb and to assist. I think even a great example, you mentioned one of the benefits was the stamp duty waiver, for example. That had to be increased recently, right? Obviously because of what they're seeing in the market. And I don't know if you're going to just continue to increase it every couple of years, but obviously you're acknowledging something is off-putting there. So perhaps getting some type of commission or some group to look at things, or to be a standing board perhaps yearly, where you, all right, let's see what's going on here. Let's put this in here. Let's try this, or whatever, to bring us.
Some of the restrictions, these restrictions aren't like a new concept. I mean, China has loads of restrictions on ownership. South Korea has loads of restrictions on ownership. Russia, to say the least. I mean,
but look at the countries you named.
South Korea is a beautiful place. South Korea is a rich country. You know what I mean? China is also a rich country. Obviously, it has its social economic issues, but you know, it does have wealth, and they realize that.
As does Russia.
And to touch.
Nobody go in China, you know, to buy a property on the beach.
You'll be surprised that it's alright. So we have the
but you might be looking for a high rise. You might be, it's a different thing.
So
I'm not going to China for a beach property.
If I live in Dubai, then if I live in Dubai, then I'm gonna say, alright, is that building for sale? And I'll just go get it. And that's just how that's the reality in that market. So it's like, to touch on your point about the protection law, Cayman had a similar Cayman protection law, which is now the immigration law. And some of those tenets of the Cayman protection law kind of got stripped out and put to other laws. But it's interesting, if anyone gets a chance to read it, to see how much protection we actually had for ourselves that we elected it away. I want to say we elected it away.
How political of you.
Because we had people in power that said, all right, this is too restrictive, because Bermuda and Cayman pretty much had the same kind of thing going on, legally wise. Like, you know, the political structure was pretty much the same, so they pretty much had the same laws. But they obviously, as you grow, you move into different ways based on your community economic structure. But then when you look at it, because I had the brief pleasure of being an immigration officer at one point, and so we looked at that, and I was just like, what? You mean we actually had these protections in place where we now don't have those protections in place, where we're a lot more susceptible to global competition? And now we're seeing it play out in our property market. It was playing out very quietly in our property market because, you know, people could travel here, they had time, no one knew about Cayman. You were like, oh, you know, but now COVID's a thing where you're like, okay, if you have property, you can travel to Cayman. Okay. I'm just going to buy any old property I can, and I'll stay in the Ritz.
I forget, we have I don't know if it's 70 or up to 100 digital nomads that are here now in Cayman.
Yeah.
Working under that global citizenship thing. I hate to cut you off, but we have to go to a quick commercial break right now, so let's bring it to the commercials.
Maintaining a strong mind and body through sports and general healthy living is a good course of action. But what about your spiritual man, your inner man? He has to be awakened, fed, exercised, strengthened, and led according to the will of God. So, have you heard the call? I'm evangelist Brother Joseph Joey Ebanks, and I'm inviting you to worship Wednesday and Thursday nights at 7:30. We are bringing the Word of God to our communities as Jesus commanded. Faith comes by hearing, so come and hear. Bring your own chair or simply park and listen to the Word of God from your vehicle, covering the Cayman Islands with the Word of God, one community at a time.
Have you heard the call? We'll be at the junction of Reverend Blackman Road and Stadium Drive, West Bay on February 10th and 11th at 7:30 p.m.
Bacardi presents One Love Legends of Reggae Concert, Saturday, February 13th at Coral Beach, featuring Mr. Notch and Local Motion 345, Erica Asai, Bonafide K-Man, and DJ Craig, covering legendary reggae music with a lovers rock twist for this pre-Valentine's Day show. Catch the free pre-show from 4 p.m. with the Neverines and Sugar Daddy. Tickets to the main event, $25, available from eventpro.ky or ticket outlets, Coral Beach, Blackbeard's Liquor Stores, Winner's Circle, FIS MoneyGram, Funky Tanks, Island Naturals Cafe, and ShopRite. One Love Legends of Reggae Concert is brought to you by Bacardi, Coral Beach, Burger Shack, Supermix, Caymanian Times, and Radio Cayman.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go. Puritan Cleaners.
Puritan Cleaners now offering 12% off all ladies and gents wearing apparels. Prepaid on orders $19 and up. Other household items such as bedspreads, drapes, and wedding dresses remain at a standard 10% off prepaid. These discounts are on at all our stores and will end February 20th. Savannah Countryside, Elgin Avenue, 337 Eastern Avenue, drive-through, rain or shine. Telephone 949-7104. Our seamstress is on duty. Puritan Cleaners, you feel good when you look good.
Money Sense is the only personal finance radio show and podcast in the Cayman Islands, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community. Join us this Thursday as we assess Cayman's competitiveness. What is Cayman's standing in the world today, and how much at risk are we from new OECD or EU regulations? Are blacklists an existential risk for Cayman? Tony Travers will join Money Sense to discuss these very topics live this Thursday at 7:30 a.m. on Radio Cayman. Follow us on Twitter and tweet your questions to @MoneySenseRadio, in partnership with the CFA Society Cayman Islands and sponsored by the Cayman Islands Chamber Pension Plan. Catch Money Sense this Thursday at 7:30 a.m.
For information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you. For the record. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM from 7:30 to 9 a.m. for Cayman's new Straight Talk morning show. For the record.
I invite you to join me for the record. You are invited to be a part of this interesting and informative show. Embrace the opportunity to dialogue with your legislators, policymakers, and those charged with policy implementation.
For the record. Brought to you by
Coca-Cola. Available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors.
Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola. The Tuesday and Thursday edition of The Business Buzz is brought to you by Cayman Medical Supplies, providing quality pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and consumer products to healthcare providers, retailers, and ultimately the patients at a reasonable rate in a friendly, caring, and timely manner. Cayman Medical Supplies is located at number 93 Smith Road, Windward Center. Telephone 949-6211.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, filling in. Well, Wednesdays is now my day for Talk Today, so I'm no longer filling in for Sterling Dwayne Banks. We are not taking any calls during this section of Talk Today, so please WhatsApp us your messages at 925-3261. We are speaking with Victor Crumbly, Chris Hadomi, and Rashad Rankin about the plight of home ownership for young Caymanians. We were just touching on foreign investment and how we can hopefully maybe put some restrictions on foreigners buying land here, people who are not residents, are not Caymanians. If we could put some sort of a restriction on the buying, not completely denying it, just something that we can make it a little bit more feasible for people of this generation and future generations to come. Rashad, you said you wanted to touch on something.
Yeah, the only issue I kind of see with that is at the end of the day, money talks. And I know when you do a big development, you know, you get government going to hit you with a ton of fees. You know, a lot of planning fees, they hit you with other fees that other people don't necessarily know about. And a lot of that money then goes back into the economy to do good stuff for Cayman. So I don't see them taking away the ability for, let's say, foreign investors. If there's let's say, a local Caymanian that has a ton of money that wants to do it, then that's great. But majority of times it's, you know, a foreign investor bringing in outside money, and then government is going to hit them with a ton of fees and then take that money and do something good for the island. So it's tough to say that I can see them putting a restriction on anything. You know, it's just for, in my opinion, a developer to start saying, okay, I made enough money in my time, let me try to do something for the island, and necessarily like.
Do you think that's going to happen?
No,
but also too,
it's nice to think that.
Yes,
way.
It's nice to dream, you know.
No, but it's not to say I've made enough money, so let me do something for free. You can still make your money, but in terms of maybe switching the gears a little bit from high-end modern luxury to something more affordable, 2-3 bedroom family style stuff. You know what I'm saying? So perhaps not making 50 million, but making 20 million.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
That's exactly what I meant. Like, you know, if you make 50 million, 100 million on one development, it's not going to kill you for your next development to make like 1 million, 5 million, 10 million. It's not going to kill you. You know, you just made 100. You know, but at the end of the day, everybody wants to stack as much money as they can. Yeah, thinking we can go somewhere every day.
All right, well, maybe that comes out of this. Maybe, you know, you look at, you have different car brands made from the same manufacturer. So you might have a Toyota, you might have a Lexus. So maybe perhaps let's go easy on the Lexuses and go straight for a little bit more of some Toyotas.
Yeah,
exactly. It's a great comparison.
Yeah. Exactly.
It'd be nice to see some sort of incentive for developers to do some sort of like a low income kind of property, or even say, hey, if your development is going to be a low income property, it's set up that way. Get planning permission, then you get certain incentives on certain fees, like you know, the closing costs if it's for low income. You know, I'm just saying, like, if you look at the original process, natural process for making a property, creating a property or development, you know, create certain trigger points where if I say, hey, this is for, these properties are going to be 100, 200 grand and less, then I'll be like, all right, then we can give you a break on X because we know that your profit margins are going to be so much. You know what I mean? And those are the kind of small things we could do right now without, you know, holding the session of Parliament, having a vote. They can literally gazette it and say, hey, this is what we would like to do, send it around and say, boom. And it's a process because it's not legislation, it's just a process. You know what I mean?
Which leads me to one of the questions that I had for you guys was, what are some of the provisions or incentives available that you believe have helped you or helped others in buying land or property? I know for Rashad, when he mentioned earlier, the pension withdrawal definitely helped you out.
Yes, because as a younger guy at the time,
you're still young.
Yeah, well, younger to say the least. Yeah.
Yes.
It was good to be able to withdraw on that to, you know, get the extra money to be able to put down as a down payment. So, yeah, I definitely think a pension withdrawal is a good incentive, but I think it has its good and its bad. Like, if we draw on the money and we decide to sell the property, it's our property. You know, we should be able to keep the money. And the only way you don't have to put it back to is after you pass retirement age at 65. Then you don't have to put the money back. But yeah, so the pension withdrawal is good, and it has its good, and it has its bad about it. You just gotta weigh the options and decide which one's best for you.
Right. So. Well, I mean, at least I think you made a sound investment with that pension withdrawal.
Yes, I did.
We know a lot of people that were using that money for cosmetic things. You know, that's not necessarily an investment. And so, any other suggestions? What you think that could be done to help this process a little easier?
I guess for me it would be coming from a bank perspective. You know, sometimes you get some really great people who want to assist, and you get some duds sometimes who just they don't return your call. They'll give you the informational packet, you know, come and set up with us. This is what we offer, this is what we do, and then the communication lacks. And a lot of times this is a big moment for a lot of people. So you kind of need to have your hand held a little bit. You need to be really encouraged and I guess I want to say supportive. And some people get that from that perspective. So I think sometimes that really assists when you have someone who makes the process smooth for you, gives you the pointers, and that can be from an agent standpoint, but also too from that particular loan or customer representative that you're dealing with at the bank. That's what some of the things that I've found, on top of the pension withdrawal that you have access to up to $35,000, and then also the stamp duty waiver as well. But with that in particular, you got to make sure you read the fine print as well in that stamp duty waiver.
Yeah,
$1 over, and you're gonna get hit with.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure, like I said, you just at the end of the day do all of your homework, and absorb all the information that you can.
I'm going to elaborate on that when you say you got to read the fine print with the stamp duty waiver, because I feel like there's a little something that you want to share with us.
Oh, no, it's just in terms of, if you find that property at X amount and you think that you're going to have this, I'm going to assess my pension, I'm going to use a stamp duty waiver. It's not a blanket free for all. There's still going to be that waiver is only good for X amount to X amount. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times there's no wiggle room. And then also too, you look at your valuations. If the valuation comes back and says, "Hey, this is actually worth more than this," or which is sometimes the case, you're going to get hit. So if you think that you had that savings coming, when you go to close, you're going to be required to have that excess cash. And then just getting back to earlier, we talked about, just on a side note, if anyone is thinking about this type of stuff right now, you have to save. You have to put away the money in order to even be in the arena to talk. Basically.
Right.
Sorry.
Chris, I want to come back to you because we were talking about valuations and you groaned right there. So I know you have something to say, but we have to go to the 1 p.m. headline news right now. And right after that, we're going to continue our discussion.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm April Cummings. Police have arrested a 27-year-old West Bay man on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving in relation to the fatal collision which occurred on January 16th on West Bay Road. He has been granted bail as the investigations continue. The passenger in the vehicle remains in the hospital. 24-year-old Shane Anthony Ewart was killed in the crash, which occurred around 12:15 in the morning. In international headlines, the Jamaica Gleaner says that country has recorded 2 more COVID-19 deaths, pushing the death toll to 355. A 41-year-old man from St. Elizabeth and a 49-year-old woman from Hanover are the latest victims. There are 100 new cases, with ages ranging from 5 months to 94 years, pushing the total number of COVID-19 cases in Jamaica to 16,073, with 3,399 being active. U.S. President Joe Biden tells House Democrats that he is not married to an absolute number on his $1.9 trillion COVID rescue plan, but says Congress needs to act fast on relief for the pandemic and the economic crisis. Biden says he also does not want to budge from his proposed $1,400 in direct payments to Americans. Also out of the U.S., the director of the CDC says schools can safely reopen even if teachers aren't vaccinated for the coronavirus. As some teachers' unions balk at resuming in-person instruction before teachers are inoculated, Dr. Rochelle Walensky says vaccination of teachers is not a prerequisite for the safe reopening of schools. Walensky cited CDC data showing that social distancing and wearing a mask significantly reduce the spread of the virus in school settings. President Joe Biden has pledged to ensure nearly all K-8 schools will reopen for in-person instruction in the first 100 days of his administration. Those are your headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. I'm April Cummings.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Your voice, your choice, your radio.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, your host for Wednesdays on Talk Today. We are here with Victor Crumbly, Chris Hadomi, and Rashad Rankin. We are discussing the plight of home ownership for young Caymanians. Before the break, we were just touching on valuations and how this can be somewhat of a frustrating part of searching for land or property. And Chris gave a big groan, but then we had to go to our news headlines. So, Chris, give us your thoughts on valuations.
A part of your mortgage agreement, you're going to need to get home insurance, right? And
right.
Home insurance requires you to get a valuation. So now, if you do go through the bank with your home insurance, what you'll find is that when it comes to renewal, you don't get a conversation about how much your property is worth. It's just, here's the renewal. Now, if you're not paying attention to your renewal notice, you will then not notice how much your property was versus the next year. So this year, if your property is $300,000 and they then put $400,000 on it, you may not understand that right away, and you're looking at the price, you're like, okay, it's into my mortgage, so I'm paying it every month. But what you're not seeing is that your property could be under or overvalued. Now, in the event that there's a loss with your insurance, they're going to look at the valuation, and if your property is undervalued based on the insurance you took out, you're paying for more insurance than you need. Now, a lot of people don't even look at their renewal notices. I was a part of an insurance company for a long time, so I kind of understood what was happening. But when I realized that some of the banks were just basically looking for a valuation, not necessarily looking for the right information. So a client that I was dealing with at the time had a property at a certain value. He got it valuated by a local valuation company, and then the bank that he was with got it valued by someone overseas. We're talking about $100,000 split between the property that he owned. He was like, my property don't worth that much. It's only worth X, Y, Z. And I was like, wow, okay, let me look into it. And I found out that I called the company that had the higher valuation. Like, we were just working off comparables. We weren't actually there. We didn't see the property. I was scratching my head because I was like, how are you able to do that in our market? I couldn't come to the U.S. and do a valuation on your property, and then you say, hey, HOA, this is what I'm going to do, or the bank, or whichever bank. You couldn't do that.
That seems ridiculous to me. Well, what's the purpose of asking a foreign valuation company to do a valuation on your property in the Cayman Islands?
Now, that blew my mind because I just caught that by accident. So imagine how many properties that bank has and how many times they have put their information out there saying, hey, value this property, and then you have people overseas saying, hey, this is how much it costs, and then your
So who does the bank go with?
That's what I'm saying. The conversation, you don't have that conversation. The bank goes with the most relevant one. So, for example, if you say, hey, I can't afford that, then they'll then go to the next one and be like, hey, this is your new renewal price. And you think you're getting a deal, but really and truly, you got to look at what your property is construction-wise versus what it's actually insured for. Because when I took my property and I looked at my valuation, I was like, okay, valuation was a little low, but then I had to pay because obviously you're competing against someone else, and it's going to push your price up. And then you have to consider it on the insurance side. And the bank is going to be like, no, you have to then insure it for the price you borrowed at. So then you're in a situation as an owner, and this is not specific to me. That's everybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody's in that situation. The bank is saying, this is how much you want us to give us this amount of money. This is how much you're going to insure your property for. But when you have a loss, the insurance company is going to be like, all right, well, we can only give you so much based on the valuation. So you just kind of have to put your thinking hat on. Look at everything that's given to you, all the paperwork that the insurance company gives you, the bank. Look at all of it. Even if it's painting, it takes you an hour. Drink coffee, milk, whatever you gotta do. Look, power through it, because at the end of it, you'll have more information than a lot of other people do, and then you won't be surprised. You won't be caught out. You know what I mean? You won't be unaware of what's happening. You'll be aware of it. Then you can be like, hold on, why is my property now $300,000? Now that gentleman was aware. He was completely aware of what's going on, and then if you approach him, you would not think about it. But when he tells you, hey, this is how much my property is worth, and if we never had that conversation, he wasn't of his convictions, I wouldn't have done the homework. I wouldn't have seen that this was happening, and I wouldn't have been aware of it. So that when new clients come through now, we're aware. Okay, was this done locally? If it's not, then we reject it.
Don't blindly trust and do your own research that you have to do for that.
You got it.
All right, gentlemen, we have a couple of minutes left before we have to go into our next break, and I have to welcome our next guest in. But any suggestions that you have to others? in the buying process to make it more transparent and easier for Caymanians, whether it's to friends and family, whether it's to agents or banks or developers that might be listening, or hopefully elected officials, or aspiring elected officials.
Put it on the platform.
Yeah. So what I would say to buyers, save as much money as you can, because the bank's not going to talk to you unless you have a good amount of savings in your bank account. So save your money. Do your research, like Chris and Victor stated. Make sure you know what exactly you're looking for, and find an agent, like I said, that is going to help you and like walk you through the process. Like I know a few, so Property Pals, Williams 2 Real Estate. They have really good agents there that work with you.
Property Cayman.
Walk you through the process. They pretty much hold your hand, and they don't let anyone screw you. So doing business with them, I had it was really good business done with them, so. And for politicians, I can't what can I say, they know the
they
struggles
used to be us too.
Yeah, they know the struggles that the young Caymanians having. We can continue to talk about it all the time, but if they're not ready to necessarily put some money to the side and say, okay, we go in, restrict some of these things to provide a future for our Cayman people, nothing going to change. We can have these conversations every day. They can listen all the time. But if inside of them they're not willing to do something and say, okay, time for a change in Cayman, all this going to be pointless at the end of the day. So I hope a politician and a body that's running our future wise, think about what's happening in the island, and
add it to the platform for May 2021.
26th.
Okay.
For this May 2021. Oh, I'm talking about the date itself. Yeah.
Election day is the 26th of May.
Put it on the platform. And Rashad mentioned Save. We keep talking about Save. You have to have the money ready to go. I think there's this conception. There's this concept that you're gonna beat this game. You're gonna get in here. You're gonna find this property at X, and you're gonna beat them down and get it for this value. It doesn't really go like that. This is a serious game, and you have to sort of be prepared to play it at the levels of which these persons who've been playing it for quite some time have been playing it. So you have to have the money ready to go, and you have to be focused on what it is you want, what it is you need, and you have to be ready to go to pull that trigger, so to speak. Because like I said, if you're looking at the statistics, you're seeing some of these homes and these properties on Cerriba and whatnot, and some of them are listed for days or for hours, and they're gone. By the time you see the sponsored ad on your Facebook or your Instagram, you call, and it's because it's happened to me. I saw this wonderful property in town. I saw it on a Saturday night. I called on Monday morning, which was obviously a mistake, but they told me it was gone from the previous day that it was listed, the same exact day. So you have to be in a mindset that you're gonna be ready to go, and then you have to have your closing costs and things like that in that respect. So just continue to get as much information as you can from the companies, the businesses, the agents, your friends, your families, and then, like back to Kathy's point, make your own conclusion. Sort of have your own sort of understanding and whatnot, and then of course have the money in the account so you're ready to go once that button is pressed, because it goes that quickly.
That's right. We've got to wrap it up. Do you have a quick point?
Quick one.
Right.
2 words: voluntary payments. If you have a pension, you can make voluntary payments, compound interest, all that, and you can take that money out whenever you want. So if you need a safe haven, if you don't have a bank account but you have a pension account, if you got $10, $25, $100, $15, whatever it is, if you constantly put those voluntary contributions in your pension, you can draw on that when you are ready. And the pension is like a fund, so that is also subject to up and downs. You already know that, but it's also subject to some really gains as well. So if you want to keep making money and you want to save your money, you don't want to necessarily put it in a bank, best place for it, pension.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much for joining me today.
Some GameStop.
We're going to have the GameStop stock talk at 2 p.m. actually.
Awesome.
So thanks for joining me this afternoon. I appreciate it.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
we can continue this kind of a conversation on future Wednesday shows that I'll be hosting. And we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and when we're back, we will be welcoming Natalie Urquhart, Director for the National Gallery.
As we ride the hamster wheel, scampering along the treadmill of living, we try to reset to this new normal, this new life. Where getting away is staying right here. Where vacation is staycation, staying safe. Where focus is surviving minutes, hours, days of anxiety. Step away and say hello to the latest exhibition of the National Gallery. Say hello to Alchemy by Cayman's premier sculptor, native son Horacio Esteban. Lose yourself in moments of geology meeting history, meeting botany, meeting zoology, meeting art. Where Caymanite and coral and unearthed cedar of thousands of years strike a pose in art. Bring your family. Leave your stress at the doors. Wellness, renewal, mental peppermint. Alchemy at the National Gallery, supported by Rotary Central Community Service. Rotary opens opportunities.
How can you take your business from good to great and thrive in the new normal? By finding the smartest, most powerful IT solutions to optimize your business operations. And now, Digicel Business Hub is making it simple for you. High-speed Wi-Fi, mobile and office phones, IT security, Microsoft Office with Teams, and much more. Everything your business needs to level up in the new normal. Get world-class IT for your business with Digicel Business Hub. Sign up today. Call us on 623-3444 or visit our website, digicelbusiness.com.
Money Sense is the only personal finance radio show and podcast in the Cayman Islands, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community. Join us this Thursday as we assess Cayman's competitiveness. What is Cayman's standing in the world today, and how much at risk are we from new OECD or EU regulations? Are blacklists an existential risk for Cayman? Tony Travers will join Money Sense to discuss these very topics live this Thursday at 7:30 a.m. on Radio Cayman. Follow us on Twitter and tweet your questions to @MoneySenseRadio in partnership with the CFA Society Cayman Islands and sponsored by the Cayman Islands Chamber Pension Plan. Catch Money Sense this Thursday at 7:30 a.m.
Radio Cayman Super Jam Show, the #1 drive time entertainment show on your radio. Enjoy a mix of pop, hip-hop, dancehall, urban gospel. The Super Jam Show is
brought to you by these kind sponsors.
The Cayman Islands Football Association, CIFA, building a better future for Cayman football.
Cayman Insurance Center. Don't take chances with your family's future.
The University of the West Indies Open Campus.
Find your place in the Cayman Dream today. The UWI Open Campus, on-site, online, and on demand.
Visit open.uwi.edu. Call them today at 946-8322. Train with Dre. Train with Dre's lunch weight loss program. Get your meals right and lose weight today. No excuses, no gimmicks. Call Dre today at 928-3420.
The Super Jam on Radio Cayman.
Blue Marlin Restaurant. Takeout on Eastern Avenue. Delivery and catering.
Food is awesome.
Call 947-4752 to place your order.
The #1 drive time entertainment show on your radio.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, and joining us in studio this afternoon, we have Natalie Urquhart, Director for the National Gallery. She'll be discussing the latest exhibition, 2020 Vision Lockdown Experiences from the Cayman Islands. Good afternoon, Natalie. How are you doing today?
Great. It's good to be here. As always, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. Thank you. So the National Gallery and your latest exhibition. I know that the theme, as I just mentioned, 2020 Vision Lockdown Experiences from the Cayman Islands, it was a very trying time when we had to go through quarantine and lockdown, and that did make a lot of people quite creative. Either people were working themselves way too much because they just found that they're at home
and
they're not breaking
no
up their
boundaries.
days. Yes. And then there's I have more time on my hands, and what can I do? So people maybe starting other businesses or getting more creative. And in your situation here with this exhibition, it was how did it come up for you? How did you decide, okay, this is what we're going to focus on?
Absolutely. And I think, to your point, getting more creative, what was interesting too, we talked to a lot of the artists that we work with. You were either incredibly creative or had total creative block, because obviously there was a lot of anxiety and stress as well. Right. So it's been really interesting to speak to the people that, you expect to be, you've got all this time at home, you get your paint out and start creating loads of stuff. So I think people managed it in different ways, but one thing we've always found through the work that we've done with multiple exhibitions is everyone loves photography. It's a really great tool for anyone in the community. Everyone's got a smartphone now, whether you're a professional photographer with really, expensive equipment. It's a way of documenting our experiences, whether that's in lockdown or otherwise. And we're all there for several months at home. I looked at my phone at the end of it when we were putting this show together, and I've just got lots of food pictures because I got back to cooking when I was in lockdown. So we all did, different ways or found different ways of passing the time. But I think, if you think about what museums are for, and we build collections, we document moments in our history, whether that's through working directly with artists or actually collecting objects, in this case, documentary photographs, we play a really important role in ensuring that story continues well beyond the moment that we live through. So part of the idea behind 2020 Vision was to reach out to the community itself and say, we'd like to hear from you directly. Whether those are images of sort of individual, quiet family moments at home, whether they're deserted streets across the Cayman Islands. And we saw a lot of that in the media that we were watching daily. You guys did an amazing job at keeping us connected.
Thank you.
Or wellness time. I think we all embrace those 90 minutes of just getting outside into nature.
Yes.
So it's very naturally fallen into those three themes, the sort of indoor family time, outdoor wellness, and then community, and looking at the amazing work our frontline personnel did, our emergency responders, all these really surreal, empty roads that we're so used to being busy and packed. So it's at the beginning of a story that we're bringing together. We're also working with the Cayman Islands Government Cabinet Office, who are doing a wider memorial publication and documentary on this moment, and some of the images from the community will feed into that wider project. So it's a pretty exciting collaboration with their project as well.
Right. You touched on an important point. So while a museum will collect, your moments in history, past, and your present time right now, and what's going on. So we're documenting what's really happening. And as much as I'm sure we would all like to forget about COVID and everything else that resulted from it, and we just kind of want to move on and just get that past us and be able to live our normal lives again. I don't know what normal is going to be anymore. And yet it's such a moment in our time that I don't think any of us expected to go through. That, let's see how we did change. Let's see how this did affect us. And it did affect everybody differently. So there was so much to deal with. I'm so thankful that I do not have children, because I don't know how people were able to manage working in their home and then also being able to navigate with their children through online classes. And then, you said you did a lot of cooking. So imagine having to be able to also then, in those same hours and madness, having to be able to get meals out for your family. And then, okay, we have 90 minutes to exercise. We can't do it in the day because it's too hot. So everybody usually goes in around the evening, around 5 o'clock or so. And that's when you see massive people. But then you can't really talk to them because you have to do the social distancing thing. And it could be hard. It was quite a trying time. So to be able to capture these different images, moments that we were going through during COVID here through photography is a great way to be able to express yourself and just to remember what we were going through. I know with this exhibition there was 3 major themes that was being captured through the camera lens. Can you tell us about those themes?
Well, absolutely. And the first one, as you just rightly pointed out, celebrating how parents managed, how teachers managed to adapt online, keeping students and young people both sort of creative and energized outside of the school time, but then focused on school and managing to do that. Sometimes with very limited digital access and remote access. We had a very busy digital program ourselves at the gallery, sort of sending out exhibitions and virtual tours and collections. But of course, a lot of people don't necessarily have the ability to spend a lot of time on that digital sort of bandwidth or shared equipment. So it's really thinking about the remarkable work that parents and teachers did. So some of the images are just that. They're kids being homeschooled. They might be moments of family time where you've just got a dad and a daughter sitting there contemplating and just having a rest. There'll be some really fun images of families on their porches in a neighborhood. Kind of, there's a photographer called Lisa Reed that has done a series called Porch Traits.
Yes.
And she's gone through, and each of the families have come out, social distancing, but of course being there for their family porch traits, which is a really clever use of her time. So that's the family and indoor time. So there's a lot of different ways people have interpreted that theme. There's actually 42 photographers currently in the exhibition, but I'll talk about how people can continue contributing. It's an ongoing project. Something else we see in home time is obviously people working. We have, as we were emerging out of the lockdown, students beginning to go off to school. So there's a really poignant image of a young student sort of leaving the house for the first time. There's family gatherings, again, emerging out of lockdown. It's a wonderful picture by Lennon Christian later on in the third theme, which is community, with a church gathering and an outdoor parking lot outside the Church of God with people social distancing in their seats outside. So it really, these are multiple viewpoints from across our community, which is what was so important for us, so that it's an authentic and diverse documentation of experiences, not just one or two experiences.
Right.
And then the third one, of course, is touching on that wellness time. It's really just a celebration of nature. I think in the same way as we saw during lockdown when we did the Art Under Lockdown exhibition, which had 87 artists contributing, paintings and sculptures and artwork, which was an online exhibition as well, as is this one. People are really drawn to capturing or reflecting nature when they're stuck inside. It's amazing. It takes kind of being inside to be mindful about this beautiful environment that we live in and just the joy that we get from being on the beach or in a stunning landscape that we call home in Cayman. So a lot of the wellness outdoor time images are celebrations of that beautiful natural environment, or a child jumping into the ocean when they were able to.
Yes.
So it's a really poignant series of photographs.
We do tend to value things once they're taken away from us.
Yes,
which is unfortunate. We should value it while we have it, but once it's taken away, we realize how much it really meant to us and the role it really played in our lives. So we live in such a beautiful island, surrounded by beautiful sea, and the beaches are beautiful. So to see some of those images that when I was on the website myself. So for our listeners, you can go to nationalgallery.org.ky. And right away, at the top of your screen, you will see exhibitions. Just click on that image and you'll be taken to the current exhibitions available, the second of which we are talking about right now, 2020 Visions, Lockdown Experiences from the Cayman Islands. So you'll see of these, I think, 42 photographers, did you say?
42 photographers. There's a few more images. Some photographers have multiple images in the exhibition. So there's a good 50 or plus. There's quite a lot to get
quite
through.
A lot. I think there's more than that,
And you can visit at any time. You don't have to see everything in one go. And this was designed specifically as an online experience.
Right. And it's beautiful. So it's for photography. So it's easy to look at, and whenever you want, and you can go back and look and share your thoughts with other people that are also viewing this exhibition. But one of the images that really struck out to me when it comes to the nature is something by Lisa Collins. It was titled Freedom. And she's underwater, and it's a silhouette of a snorkeler. And it's shot into the sun's halo, so it captures the silhouette of a snorkeler, and it just looks like this round, almost like crystal ball image in a sense, but it's underwater. And it's such a beautiful photo. I absolutely loved it. And so that's one of the favorite things that I saw there. And as you mentioned, there was some empty street photos. So we're in Cayman, we're very used to our busy streets and the never-ending traffic. And there's always people. It's always a hustle and a bustle, especially the 9 to 5, or maybe I should say more 7 a.m. to 5-ish time. So Al Ebanks had a series of photos on there, empty space photos for our normally busy streets. And that was striking because if I compare that to really old images, like the black and white images of Cayman from way back in the day, and it's usually you're not really seeing any people on those streets either, maybe just one or two and barely any cars, but it's just images of Cayman from back in the day, and that's what it reminds me of when Cayman was more untouched.
Yep.
And more quieter and pristine.
Slower. The idea of slowness, I think, is such a critical takeaway in lockdown, because we all live such busy lives, and whether that is, as you said, getting up super early to get through traffic to get children to school on time, or trying to fit in wellness around work and after school clubs again for young people. We're constantly on the go. And I think, it was a really strange thing to try and navigate emotionally and spiritually when you're suddenly forced into a lockdown experience. And of course, we have friends and families all over the world that are back in lockdown, and was in such a remarkable, unique experience in Cayman, and very grateful to everyone. The national, responders, emergency centre, and everyone that's made that happen and continues to make that happen, because it's an ongoing community effort. But this notion of stillness and slowing down, I think was one of the very positive takeaways, and we do all need to mindfully hold on to that.
Yes, we need to.
It's going again, but we do.
And you said thanks to all the people that have provided so many of those essential services that we needed, but you have to look at the National Gallery as well, because you were able to provide an outlet for a lot of the creatives to share what they've been doing during this time. So that's so important.
Thank you for that. And I'm very blessed to work with an amazing team at the gallery, and we certainly didn't have any sort of time off during lockdown. It was a very intense schedule.
Okay.
It's an interesting idea to think, if you have a museum and you're used to, we do a lot of community outreach as well, but obviously we have our main collection and exhibition at the National Gallery in Esterly Tibbetts Highway, and a couple of sites in the Sister Islands as well that are permanent spaces for the Sister Islands communities. But suddenly you have to shut the doors. So how do you continue providing these essential services? And this is an idea that museums around the world have grappled with. Even the big museums in the US and Europe, it's exactly the same concept. So my whole team was very, very resilient, responsive, learning a lot at the beginning of lockdown. We were able to do things like put 200 artworks from the National Art Collection online with biographies about the artists, so that you could learn about Caymanian art for the first time in a scope that large. You can actually go and do walking tours through exhibitions on our website. So there's several different exhibitions that you can experience almost like you're actually in the space. And then these special online exhibitions, and a really fun series that we did with a lot of local artists, just to kind of, again, give them, remind people that they're there and working on their craft, called Artist Talks, which was sort of self-filmed studio visits for artists. So those are just a few of the things that were available, along with a lot of teacher resources, family art activities to download. And that's evergreen content, so that's all still on the website. And I think in many ways it's been very interesting. We were grappling with some of these ideas before lockdown, specifically for our Sister Islands audiences.
Yes.
So if you couldn't come to the central space, how could we make these accessible? And of course, to share Caymanian art and the work of our creatives internationally as well. It's been a real learning curve, but we are hoping now to have this digital program run simultaneously with all of the on-site exhibitions that we currently have. And we have, a fantastic Horacio Esteban exhibition on, plant portraiture in collaboration with the National Trust. So there's still a lot to see on site, of course, as well.
Let's touch back on that when we're going to go to a commercial break right now, but once we return from that break, let's touch more on that and the digital transformation process that you guys took on during this COVID time in the Cayman Islands.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. Are you aware of the performance of your pension plan? The Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan provides quarterly fund fact sheets for our members to stay informed with the plan's performance. For the year ended August 31st, various life cycle funds provided returns between 9.2% and 16.5%, and our all-in expense ratio is currently the lowest it's ever been, a record low at 0.72%. Visit chamberpension.ky to review our fund fact sheets. You can see the performance as far back as 10 years. Remember that pensions are a longer-term investment strategy. Focus on the long term rather than the short-term returns. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan continues to perform for you. Thinking of getting a hybrid but don't know much about them? Vant Motors has lots of great reasons why you should choose a Toyota Corolla Hybrid or CHR Hybrid for your new ride. Hybrids save fuel, run cleaner, reduce CO2 emissions, and even recharge their batteries while being driven, so you don't ever have to worry about plugging them in. Both are super quiet as well as economical and fun to drive. So stop by Vant Motors to check out a new, fuel-efficient, eco-friendly Toyota Corolla Hybrid for only $26,900 or a sporty CHR Hybrid starting from $34,150 while stock lasts. Go Toyota. Go hybrid. Go to Vant Motors on Walkers Road.
Are you interested in a career in IT? The Spring UCCI Cisco NetAcad is offering more than 15 scholarships to new IT Academy students. The scholarship covers half of the tuition of the cost of the course. UCCI's IT Academy courses include CompTIA A+ certification, cybersecurity, CCNA Cyber Ops, programming essentials in Python, and Internet of Things. To apply for a scholarship, visit www.ucci.edu.ky/Cisco-NetAcad-scholarship. The deadline is February 10th and classes start on February 15th.
Money Sense is the only personal finance radio show and podcast in the Cayman Islands, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community. Join us this Thursday as we assess Cayman's competitiveness. What is Cayman's standing in the world today, and how much at risk are we from new OECD or EU regulations? Are blacklists an existential risk for Cayman? Tony Travers will join Money Sense to discuss these very topics live this Thursday at 7:30 a.m. on Radio Cayman. Follow us on Twitter and tweet your questions to @MoneySenseRadio in partnership with the CFA Society Cayman Islands and sponsored by the Cayman Islands Chamber Pension Plan. Catch Money Sense this Thursday at 7:30 a.m.
Running for political office is no easy feat. You need to be everywhere, all of the time.
Now is the time to get your important messages out to the voting public.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, has always been there for incumbents and future candidates alike. Whether you want to get your political commercials or infomercials on air, make in-house studio appearances, or have your district meetings broadcast live to the listening audience.
Set a time today to meet with one of our knowledgeable Radio Cayman sales account executives who have their fingers on the pulse of the community.
Call them today on 949-7799 or email rcsales@gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, we've been in the community for just about 45 years. That means something.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller. In studio this afternoon, we have Natalie Urquhart, Director of the National Gallery. She's discussing their latest exhibition, 2020 Vision, Lockdown Experiences from the Cayman Islands. And we were just touching on what the National Gallery has done in terms of a digital transformation as we all had to kind of switch our business models and how we're serving customers and... do you call them customers, art fans?
Visitors.
Visitors.
Yep. All sorts, visitors that come to see art, visitors that come to engage in art, because of course we have a big program of workshops and lectures and events for people to engage into. So
art lovers and supporters.
Yes.
all those great terms.
Or lovers of culture. Yes. It's a really wide open, the National Collection particularly, tells the story of our country. And so it's this very wide visual culture that we showcase.
And with the 2020 Vision Lockdown Experiences, it is a photography exhibit that's online. And we were talking about there's 3 different themes that have emerged through this particular exhibition, which is home and family, or home and family life, wellness, outdoor nature, and community. And you can still submit, as I understand, if you have images that you'd like to submit, you can still do so by emailing or getting in touch with?
So emailing assistant curator at nationalgallery.org.ky, and that is on the website again. So the website is actually the email address, so nationalgallery.org.ky. And if you go to the exhibition page, assistant curator is actually listed there. If you'd prefer to give us a phone call and ask for more information or how to sort of submit, you can just call us at 945-8111 and ask for William or myself, Natalie.
Okay, excellent. So if you're a budding photographer out there or know somebody who is or has been capturing their experience during COVID in this last year in the Cayman last year, it's been a year now almost, right? Yeah. Or 11 months or so for us. Then definitely you can share your images. And is it a selection process?
There is, but it's wide open. So everyone that's submitted is in the exhibition.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
So you can submit a few different. Please don't maybe send us like 40. Like select maybe 5 to send us. Otherwise, we'll be there for a very long time. But also want to stress as well that this is open to everybody. So you don't have to be a professional photographer. We have some really strong images from SciFEC students,
nice.
Students from the art and design program at SciFEC. Some really standout pieces, so 16, 17 years old. So again, if you're a younger teen and you want to share some images, or, I think our oldest featured artist is about 80. So, very wide in scope.
That's nice. Excellent. You were talking about the digital transformation that National Gallery has had to gone through. So for a while there, you couldn't have any visitors, but yet you're still appealing to the art fans and supporters and the creatives. The different things that you were talking about, the artist series, so the artists could kind of film themselves and talk about their art and what they're doing. You had some exhibitions also that happened during lockdown that was also online, aside from this photography one. What other things in the digital transformation did the National Gallery focus on?
So we have our general schedule sees us doing about 25 different classes, workshops and lectures a month. And those are designed, I think our younger students right now are the sort of 18 months family time, family fun days, all the way through to the work that we do with our EY Seniors program. So we had to think about, again, how to adapt so that those regular programs could continue in lockdown as well. And that was a combination of amazing education team, Maya, Laurie and Patty, creating downloadable lesson plans. Again, you could access art activities from anywhere in the world, but these lesson plans are all related to Caymanian history, culture, nature. So looking at images in the National Collection as prompts for talking about everything from environmental stewardship to identity, to our maritime history and heritage, lots of different cross-curricular learning topics that could also be used in schools as well. And we offered and continue to offer digital school tours. So again, those virtual walkthrough experiences can be done via Zoom with a National Gallery tour guide. So you can take your group or your class through these virtual experiences. It's quite amazing.
It is.
And this is a lot of new knowledge for us at the gallery as well. We were really keen as well to create a COVID response program for the creative community, particularly the visual arts community. There was some great work being done by CNCF for performing artists and musicians through the Ministry of Culture. So we collaborated with the ministry and private sector citizens in a private-public partnership on an artist grant program. And we had a submission deadline. I think there was about sort of 2 months in which you could apply, and anyone that applied did get access to that grant. And then the second part of that program was a Business of Art online professional development series for any creative in Cayman to participate in Zoom workshops, looking at things like how to market your artwork or your music or your dance practice, social media top tips for getting your work out there in this moment. And that's an ongoing project that sees us looking at portfolio development, how to connect to galleries, commercial galleries and representation, things like that. So that's a service we'll continue to provide our creative community as we move forward.
How is the funding happening for all of this?
So that was a public-private partnership. So some funds from the Ministry of Culture, and we matched those funds with private sponsorship.
Okay.
So we went out and sought very proactively sponsorship to match those funds, which was rewarding for, I think, all of us working, feeling that we could actually do something and provide assistance, because we are all so aware. And the gallery isn't a commercial gallery, so we don't really get involved very often with art sales or managing anything like that. As a museum, there's a conflict of interest there. But we do want to make sure that we put people together.
Right.
So I think one of the very alarming things we found, we did a countrywide survey in April and May looking at the impact of the pandemic on the creative sector, specifically relating to loss of sales. And we had mainly visual artists sort of fill that in because of our community, but we also had musicians and performers as well. And of course, most of our creatives rely very heavily on the tourism sector,
right?
Which is an ongoing challenge that we're going to have to continue working together with government and the private sector to address, so that there's ongoing opportunities for our creatives.
And I imagine that the response from the private sector was quite supportive, because if we think about it, a lot of the private sector companies will support different charities or nonprofit organizations in the fact that they're doing events to raise money for whatever it might be, right? And there was a lot less events happening. And even now, yes, there are some perhaps parties going on, but that's not necessarily going towards any nonprofit. It's just and the runs have started again, for example, but there used to be way more of that, way more galas and fundraising events such as that sort. So with that being halted a little bit, did you find that the private sector companies were more responsive into what the National Gallery was trying to do to help support creatives?
Well, we've always functioned in this public-private partnership model at the gallery. So we are a public authority, a government company, but we've only ever been part funded by government. We have to really raise privately about 40% of our budget every year. So we understand
that here at Radio Cayman. We're under the same belt there.
It keeps us on our toes, which could be a good thing possibly. But so we've struggled ourselves. We've obviously seen a massive impact in loss of funding, particularly through those fundraising events that you're referencing. We had our second largest fundraiser of the year planned for March 17th last year. So you can just imagine that was really the date that everything started shutting down.
It was, actually.
So it was the day of, and we decided to cancel it just to be safe. And then when we normally hold our big fundraising gala in November, we weren't, these take several months to organise. So with changing or ongoing conversations about opening up, we weren't sure whether we were going to be back in a lockdown situation, and there's so many variables right now. So we're feeling that as a public authority. We know that people on the ground are feeling it even more so. And I think that the private sector has been very generous. We have a lot of long-term partnerships at the gallery, specifically for our education programs. And because we've been able to adapt those very proactively, I think those partners have remained on board throughout, which is amazing.
Excellent. We have to go to a commercial break, and right after that, we do have a caller on the line. So caller, please do stay with us. We just got to take it to a quick commercial break first.
Hi, I'm remodeling our bathroom. I have a few questions.
Sure.
What are some ideas to make my bathroom feel larger? How do I know if I'm picking the right vanity? How do I choose a new toilet or a new countertop? Also, the lighting is terrible. Can I put a window or a skylight? And do I really need an exhaust fan?
You've come to the right place. At Brand Source, we custom design kitchen and baths, and our talented design team can help answer your questions. Whether you're looking for a modern, functional family bathroom or a luxurious personal retreat, we'll help create that beautiful space that makes your home yours. And if you're in a rush for a new look and have a limited budget, our ready-to-install bathroom vanities, built with solid wood and countertops of the finest materials, are a quick and easy remodeling solution.
For the very best in custom-designed kitchens and baths, visit Brand Source Home Gallery on Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park, Cayman's Kitchen and Bath Center.
Healthcare Pharmacy, caring about your health for the past 25 years. Radio Cayman's premier health show.
Alzheimer's and dementia, are they the same disorder?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question.
For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
Is heard on Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Brought to you by Healthcare Pharmacy in Grand Harbor, where they care about your health. Transfer and refill your prescription online. Visit healthcarepharmacy.com or call 947-8900. Healthcare Pharmacy, now with a new and second location in Governors Square. The new Healthcare Pharmacy in Governors Square is open Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Healthcare Pharmacy, where they care about your health.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller and I'm sitting here with Natalie Urquhart, Director of the National Gallery, Cayman Islands. We do have a caller on the line. We were discussing what the National Gallery has been doing in terms of their current exhibitions. Caller, welcome to Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Ms. Miller. Thank you very much for being on the air. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. I'd like to commend our director for working under tremendous pressure, being very, very creative at a time when everything is under significant pressure. Yet, because of this pressure, we are bringing out the best. They say that you have to do a lot with gold friction to make diamonds. So here we are, a diamond. We are the premier museum of choice in the entire Caribbean. And our director sits on the board of directors of the National Museum Association for the Caribbean. That is no mean feat. We are a small country and we're punching above our weight. The diversity of our activity in the cultural world and what we do for our Cayman Island is remarkable. Our gallery touches every facet of our community. And it takes money, but it takes a lot more creativity because we have a lot more creativity than money. We'd also like to commend our artists for participating. And we'd also like to commend our director and our crew who have really gone out to reach offer a lifeline to our artists who are challenged under normal circumstances because their art sometimes levitates a little above their ability to earn from it. I'd like to thank Natalie for her significant work and her crew, who are an important part of who we are as these blessed Cayman Islands. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Those were very kind words. Thank you. I wish we could ask you to call every day if we're ever feeling a little down. That was very supportive.
And if I can just jump on the back of that, and I'd like to just give a shout out individually to the team, if I may. So we have Megan Ebanks, operations business, Vicky Calvert-Das, who fundraising, that's a tough one, and HR, Maya Mutu, who's our amazing education coordinator, Laurie and Patty, Laurie Peterson, Patty Jane Ebanks, both work in education, Will Helfrich and Paige Jordison working with me in the curatorial team. So just a big shout out because it has been a huge team effort in the last year. So thank you for that, caller.
All right, thank you. Now with the exhibitions that you wanted to talk about before we go into the biennial discussion.
Yeah, because we're continuing this digital program, and as Mr. Brown said, we've been working a lot regionally with that program as well. So getting a lot of great interest from overseas about the artist work that we're showcasing. But of course, we're open, and we've been open. We've pushed really hard to open in July. We're very aware that people need a place to go that's not only creative but also a place for contemplation and that space and that slowness and stillness that we talked about. And actually, we're working on a very exciting wellness program right now that we'll come back and talk to you about in March, if we may.
Absolutely.
Art and wellness, of course, have gone together for so many years, and we've done a lot in that area at the National Gallery. But we have some amazing exhibitions on site, so we would really love to welcome the community back onto the space. It's completely free, as you know, no admission to the National Gallery, so it's accessible to all. Good parking, which is really important too, right? We know that, talking of access. Horacio Esteban Alchemy is such an inspiring exhibition. It's a mid-career showcase of the amazing Horacio Esteban's work. We all know Horacio for Caymanite. He is a master sculptor, but we also have incredible cedarwood sculptures that he's created, and it's a really fun idea of this kind of natural history museum type setup. So I'm not going to say any more because I'll give it away, but please come in. And of course there's loads of worksheets and tours and stuff that you can do to interact with that as families, as individuals, as schools. We also have a beautiful small exhibition on native plants called Homegrown, in collaboration with the National Trust for the Cayman Islands, and a great program of plant-related natural history types of events coming up in the next couple of months in collaboration with the Trust. And then, of course, we are the custodians of our national collection. We have a lot of visual art from the collection upstairs in a beautiful new exhibition that opened after lockdown called Saltwater in Their Veins, taken from a quote by Captain Edward Watson from the Oral Histories Archives. I've always been so moved by that quote. And it's looking at the evolution of our connection to our maritime heritage in Cayman, from traditional maritime work and history all the way through to conversations around environmental stewardship of the underwater environment in the 21st century.
Excellent. Yeah, I'd seen a little bit on that, and I definitely want to check out that exhibition for sure.
And that's online too, so you can check it out online first if you want, but there's nothing like coming to see the real thing,
right? I completely agree. So I'll get the teaser online, and then I'll come in person to experience that. Now, the Biennial Project. It didn't get to kick off last year, correct? But this started in 2019.
So it started in 2019, and it's every other year. Okay. So actually, the timing last year was pretty good in the fact that we were having our gap year, as it were. Okay. So the idea of a biennial is, it's quite a big word for what the project currently is, but it's been designed to grow. And of course, internationally, biennial art projects are sort of citywide showcases of that country's artwork, often inviting international visitors to come and have collaborations and exchanges with local artists. But the 2019 project was designed as a tri-island art project that was happening simultaneously. So we had the exhibition was mounted over 5 different venues in Cayman Brac, Little Cayman and Grand Cayman. So we'll be doing the same thing. It's the single biggest art project in the Cayman Islands. And this year we're looking at the theme Reimagine Futures. And we use the futures in the plural because, as you said earlier on, it's so hard in this moment to really imagine what the new world is going to look like. Right. We do know it's going to be different. It's already different. But there's so many variables happening right now. It's very difficult to make decisions around that and to really understand what that is going to be and how it's going to affect us long term. And that then drives quite a lot of stress and anxiety around that idea.
Uncertainty usually does, yeah.
It does. So we're inviting artists to respond in a very positive way to what that future might look like and be part of the solution. Addressing some of the really big upheavals that we've seen, from the wellness to social justice movements to climate action, all of the things that might affect that future, and to be inspired by some of those sub-themes and help us tell a story of what that future might look like.
Okay, and there's 3, is it themes that are part of this?
There's several, and again, this can be found on the National Gallery website. The easiest way to access this is via the blog on the site. It shows you how to submit, because our deadline for submission for consideration is this coming Friday. Oh. So we're looking at things like sustainability and environmental stewardship, social inclusion and social justice movements, health, wellness and healing in the context of the post-pandemic moment. And of course, post is still a variable term because we're very much living through it. And we're also really interested in the positioning of heritage in our current contemporary cultural moment. We have a lot of conversations in Cayman, that we're moving away from our traditions and our history and heritage. And we'd love to see or hear from artists about how we can continue having that heritage sort of close up and at the forefront of the conversation these days as well. So really hoping that we're going to receive some submissions around that.
What kind of formats are accepted in this?
So this is really wide open, and we're an art museum, but of course that's very wide in scope. So of course all the traditional painting, sculpture, photography, ceramics, craft that you might imagine, but we're working in this contemporary conversation, so we're also seeking performance art, film and video. If you are a writer or a poet and you do spoken word and want to create maybe a pop-up event within the biennial, very, very interested in that as well. So anything creative that can be presented either in the exhibition or as part of the wider program of the exhibition. And the program will be very, very integral to the whole project in terms of having workshops and panel discussions around some of these topics, and hopefully contributing solutions for our future.
So the deadline you said is this Friday, as in 2 days?
Just for the concept. So what we need from artists, and again, if you've got a finished piece, we'll definitely take a look at the finished piece. The call went out in November of last year, so this is just reminding people that the deadline is coming up. You know what we're like in Cayman, we always leave that sort of deadline to the last minute.
I'm famous for that. Yes.
I am too. And so what we need from you is images or sketches. We need a short statement about what the piece might be like, and your bio. And again, you can email that to assistant curator at nationalgallery.org.ky, or give us a call if you want a quick response today or tomorrow morning about how to submit. We're very, very happy to help you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. And again, you can email assistant curator at nationalgallery.org.ky to submit your concepts, if you need more information as well. And that exhibition will be running from the 9th of April until the 31st of July.
I'm going to say mid-April because we just remembered that Easter is the installation weekend, the weekend before. So I think we're going to give our team the Easter off and then install the following week. So mid-April, and it's a 4-month project. And it will be happening across multiple venues and certainly all 3 islands, which is really important to us.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Natalie, for joining us this afternoon. And remember, check out nationalgallery.org.ky. You can see the exhibitions online. And as she had mentioned, it is free admission. You can go down to the National Gallery as well and experience that art in person for yourself. And we're going to go to the 2 p.m. headlines. And then joining me after that is our Great Money Sense host, Simon Caudry, who I know is excited for this warm welcome. He's about to join us in the studio. We're going to be talking about the big upset to Wall Street last week and the implosion of the GameStop stocks and how social media played a major part in moving the market.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman. We've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have, on the island.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm April Cummings. Civil servants earn an additional 61 professional certifications through the Strategic Reform Implementation Unit's 2020 Professional Certification Program. The program included courses in business case development, change management, and project management. For 2020, the courses were delivered remotely along with online proctored exams. In international headlines, AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine does more than prevent people from falling seriously ill. It appears to reduce transmission of the virus and offers strong protection for 3 months on a single dose. That, according to researchers today, in what's been described as an encouraging turn in the campaign to suppress the outbreak. The preliminary findings from Oxford University, a co-developer of the vaccine, could vindicate the British government's controversial strategy of delaying the second shot for up to 12 weeks so that more people can quickly be given a first dose. Up to now, the recommended time between doses has been 4 weeks. In another reversal of a Trump-era policy, the Biden administration today dropped its discrimination lawsuit against Yale University that alleged the Ivy League school was discriminating against Asian American and white applicants. Federal prosecutors say the Justice Department's underlying investigation, aimed at ensuring Yale complies with federal anti-discrimination laws, continues. And the Canadian government has designated the Proud Boys group as a terrorist entity, noting they played a, quote, pivotal role in the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol on June 6th. The Proud Boys have faced increased scrutiny after seizing on the former Trump administration's policies and was a major agitator during earlier protests and the Capitol riot on January 6th. Those are your headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. I'm April Cummings.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Your voice, your choice, your radio.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, and I'm sitting here with our Money Sense host, Simon Caudry. We're going to be discussing, as I'd mentioned, the big upset to Wall Street from last week with the implosion of the GameStop stocks and the part that social media played in moving the market. Welcome to Talk Today this afternoon. I was about to say Money Sense, you know.
Well, it's Money Sense is tomorrow morning at 7:30.
That's right.
So it's almost Money Sense. Yes, indeed. It's on the same radio station. That's okay, isn't it?
That's right. I'm going to give a summary from what I understand.
Okay.
So I'm not a financial expert by any means, although you would think that I'd learned a lot by, producing Money Sense with you guys, which I have learned. So this is my summary.
Okay.
So at the end of this, you can tell me if I'm off or on.
Okay.
But trying to understand what happened. So basically, the GameStop stock scenario began in 2019 when a man who calls himself on social media.
Is it that you're going to use the polite version of what he calls himself, are you? Not the Reddit name?
Roaring Kitty.
Okay, because he has a Reddit name which is unpronounceably rude, apparently.
Well, the Roaring Kitty one is...
that's okay. That's the Twitter handle, yes.
is the one that I have.
Yeah.
So he had made an announcement in 2019 that he had a $53,000 investment in the GameStop stock. And then he went on to continuously post videos on social media, YouTube and TikTok, to talk about his investment idea with GameStop. And other users started following his ideas, and he had like maybe 400-something subscribers just a few months ago to people listening to him and what he wants to do with the stock. They would also use the app, Reddit, and there was a community on Reddit called Wall Street Bets. Now, the social media users there were using a free online trading platform called Robinhood.
Yep.
And that's where they were doing a lot of the GameStop buying of stocks. It was noticed by these social media users on Reddit that a hedge fund took a massive amount of short trades against GameStop. So these users convinced lots of others on Reddit and other social media sites to buy as much GameStop stock as possible, which made the price rise and the hedge fund's short position started to lose billions.
Yep.
The losses apparently surpassed $13.1 billion that the hedge fund was worth, and the hedge fund had to close their short positions and buy all the GameStop stock back at a much higher price, which drove the stock up again. This is called a short squeeze, which later I'm going to ask you to explain that a little bit more.
Uh-oh.
Now, to continue my summary, the hedge fund declared bankruptcy, and Wall Street started crying and protesting that the public joining together in such a manner should be illegal. Many online trading platforms actually stopped the trading of GameStop last Thursday, and stocks plunged, only to soar by 68% the next day. That $53,000 investment that was made in 2019 allegedly turned into a $48 million value, as was reported in a New York Times article from the weekend. 6 months ago, GameStop stocks were $5 per share, and on January 28th in the morning, this reached $469 US. By afternoon, it plummeted to $132. By Friday morning, so just last Friday, again that rose to $329. Before I came on to Talk Today, I checked the price of the stock this morning, and as of 11:25, GameStop stock was at $93.
Yep.
Does this sound correct?
You're absolutely correct with all that you have said there. There's probably some nuances that some of the players may, because they know more about what it is they did, they may have a slight interpretation difference. But yes, absolutely what you've reported there is what seems to have happened.
Okay. Now, I know when I reached out to you, you said that this was mind-blowing and you did not know what was going on. So having a couple more days to really have this sink in, what's your thoughts on this? Does this happen?
Okay, well, let's go back to, I think it was the 1600s.
Like
the 1600s is in the year.
Okay, yeah.
Actually, I don't actually know what
I'm
years
not quite that old, Simon, but yes.
Nor am I, thank you. But I don't know if it was the 1600s, 1700s. There were, in the Netherlands, there was the Dutch tulip mania. So once upon a time, people thought tulips were worth a lot of money. They're flowers, they die, they become worthless once they die. Exactly the same things happened here. People thought a company which has no business, it's not doing anything, it's closed, was worth a lot of money. It isn't, it won't be, and they'll lose a lot of money from doing it. So that's the very flippant answer. Okay, so GameStop, let's go back to the very basic of what GameStop is. GameShop. Well, what is it?
GameStop. I call it GameStop.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. So GameStop is a group of a couple hundred stores that operate in malls in the US. And they sell video games. So they sell little containers that contain a CD or DVD that you put into your computer to play a video game. Forgive me if I'm being a little naive, but even I know that no one buys CDs anymore. People now download music. And they also, surprisingly, or perhaps not surprisingly, they download video games. If you're sophisticated enough to have a video game console, you probably know how to use the internet, and therefore you probably download the game. In fact, Microsoft's new and PlayStation's new video game console, unless you pay extra, doesn't come with a hard drive. So it doesn't come with a DVD drive. So you can only download games. If that's the case, who's going into a mall to buy video games? Not many people. Who's going into a mall to buy video games when malls are closed? Even fewer people. And who's going into malls to buy video games from a store that only sells video games when they can download it? Hardly anybody. So no one's really buying any of their products.
Well, I'm going to counter that a little tiny bit. Now, so the guy who started all this, the Roaring Kitty,
yes,
as we're going to go by his handle, not his real name. I think Gil or Jill is his last name. He realized that basically the Wall Street people didn't realize the innovation that games are taking, and you still do buy the consoles. So, and
which they don't sell. Okay. You buy those online or buy them from Amazon. So,
yes, there's different ways you can buy them. Yes, but for example, I think it was the PlayStation one. I didn't pay too much attention, but that was a new thing that just came out, and people were, I think it's like $800 for the console. Yeah. It was ridiculous, and that was the big thing at the end of last quarter of 2020.
PlayStation has made huge amounts of... So Sony, which owns PlayStation, came out, I think, yesterday with record earnings because of the number of PlayStations that had been sold, which they released just before Christmas, because everyone's got nothing to do. They're sat at home because they can't go out to bars, restaurants in most parts of the world. And I
think because gaming is still a big thing for maybe a certain generation or a certain mind of people, right?
Yeah, totally. People play games. I'm not disputing that.
So I think that was what this Roaring Kitty gentleman was thinking about. Mm-hmm. This is only what I can interpret from what I'm understanding so far. Yep. So that's just going on the fact that, you're saying, oh, no, people aren't really buying the games.
No, I'm not saying no one's buying games. Okay. I'm saying no one's going into a mall to buy games.
Okay, yes.
When was the last time you went to a record shop?
Well, see, I'm the wrong person to ask that.
No, you're not. You're a human being.
Well, I am, because I'd prefer the actual
You might prefer, but when was the last time you went?
Well, that's okay. That's I can't. I don't. Not in 10 years.
Well, okay, so you're a human being that likes records. You even like to buy the original hard copy, and yet you haven't been for 10 years.
Yes, but I will still buy books.
Sure.
Forever and ever and ever, as long as I print.
Fine, but when was the last time you went into a bookstore?
Last week.
When was the last time you would have gone into a bookstore if you lived in the US? A long time ago, since they're probably closed in a lot of places because of lockdowns.
Well, yes.
Okay, so people are clearly still buying lots of games for their video consoles, for their computers, but people are downloading them in the same way people download music through iTunes, people download music through Spotify. Very few people are going to the store. So his premise that people will absolutely play games is absolutely right. People do, people are, and people are playing more and more. Not only because of the generations that are there, but people have more free time because they have no restaurants or bars to go to, so they have more time to do these sorts of things. So the premise that people play games is absolutely true. What do GameStop do? They sell games, but they only sell them in stores. Now, if you manufacture games, so you develop a new computer game, where's the best place for you to sell it? Is the best place for you to sell it to go out to a manufacturer, print it onto a DVD, ship that DVD from wherever it's manufactured in Poland all the way to, I don't know, Atlanta, and then stick it on a FedEx container, move it from Atlanta to Ohio, and then put it in the store there? Or do you put it on your website and charge people $50 to download it? Or sell it for $50 as a DVD?
On my website.
Exactly. And then you make $50. If you put it in a DVD for $50, you have to pay the retailer, you have to pay the FedEx, you have to pay the shipping company. So you probably make about $20 out of that, as opposed to 50. So no game manufacturer wants to sell DVDs because they cost them more. They make them less money. And GameStop only sells DVDs. There is no purpose to this company. It's like an HMV. It's just like a record store. Now, the theory is that it will suddenly transform itself in wondrous ways and see the light and sell stuff online. Wonderful, but why would I go to them to sell online? The only reason people go to Apple to sell music online, iTunes, is because Apple controls the phones. What does GameStop do or have that makes it invaluable to somebody that means you have to go to buy it? Absolutely nothing. So
do you think now? It dropped down to $93, right?
Yeah. But let's not confuse reality with what's going on. So what's going on Reddit is not reality. You can agree with me that no one's going into malls and no one's actually buying the product.
Yes.
Okay. So we've agreed that's the reality. But stock prices, just like tulips, don't need to reflect reality. They can do strange things for a long period of time for no really obvious reason. Tulips were the most valuable thing in the world for a long period of time until they weren't. GameStop's share price is extraordinarily valuable for a somewhat long period of time, a couple of hours here, a couple of days there, until it isn't. That doesn't change the reality that nothing's going on no one's buying their products. And the simple fact is that a lot of people who have bought the stock, all these millions of people who have signed up to this Wall Street Bets Reddit account in the last couple of weeks, have bought it, in essence, on the premise of a fraud that's happened. Now, why do I say that? So I'm not accusing the person, Kitty, whatever his or her name was, I'm not accusing him of committing a fraud, but let me give you a small history lesson from the 1980s. In the 1980s, have you seen the movie Wolf of Wall Street?
Yes.
Okay. Great movie.
Yes, it is.
The guy behind it's a fraud. He committed fraud. He committed securities offences. He did stuff which was illegal. What he did is he got a group of people, mostly men, got a group of men together and said, this morning when we woke up, we are going to buy millions of dollars of this company. So whatever company it was. And they bought millions of dollars of the company. And then they went out and said to themselves, how do we make our $1 million investment worth $10 million? Better get lots of other people to buy it. So they pick up the phone, call people's grandmothers and say, best thing you can do today is go and buy company A. Lots of people go and buy that company. Price goes up, supply, demand. And then what do you think they do? They think, oh, we're long-term investors. We're going to stick with this for the next 15 years. No, the next day they sell it. They sell it at the high price. And all the people who have bought it as it was going up suddenly find that the person who'd put the $1 million in sold their money and the price starts going down again. That was what became colloquially referred to as boiler room tactics. So people would work in what they call these boiler room environments where they were just pumping up a stock and then dumping it and finding the next sucker to buy something. Those were ruled quite rightly by regulators as fraudulent. People got hurt. People lost their money. Now, this person didn't lose their money, made a lot of money. There's always going to be somebody who makes a lot of money. But anybody who bought in at $300 on its way to $400 is today 66% poorer. It's less than 100.
Yes.
Not many people, what I think 4 million people now follow this Reddit thread. I bet you not more than about 50,000 of them, that's a completely random guess, but not many of those people would have bought the stock at $6. A lot of them would have bought it at $100, $150, $200, $250. Do you think many of them sold out at $400? No, they thought it was going to 4,000 probably. Why not 4 million? Who knows?
So they should have
of course.
Out.
Well, anyone should cash out at a price higher than they bought it at. That's the way you make money, by investing. But these people thought, oh, it might be 4 million, it might be 4 trillion. Why should it stop at 400? What's magical about 400? Nothing. The simple fact is there was nothing magical about any of the prices. What was happening is people were being duped into buying something because, much like tulips, They thought they were persuaded. They were persuadable people, and they were persuaded by people posting, "I've made millions," that this was a quick, get-rich-quick scheme, and that's what they did. They were deluded into buying stuff.
I got to hold you to that thought because we got to go to a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back and continue this conversation.
Money Sense is the only personal finance radio show and podcast in the Cayman Islands, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community. Join us this Thursday as we assess Cayman's competitiveness. What is Cayman's standing in the world today, and how much at risk are we from new OECD or EU regulations? Are blacklists an existential risk for Cayman? Tony Travers will join Money Sense to discuss these very topics live this Thursday at 7:30 a.m. on Radio Cayman. Follow us on Twitter and tweet your questions to @MoneySenseRadio, in partnership with the CFA Society Cayman Islands and sponsored by the Cayman Islands Chamber Pension Plan. Catch Money Sense this Thursday at 7:30 a.m.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller and we're sitting here with Simon Caudry. We're discussing GameStop stocks, what happened last week with social media and why those stocks went up and they came almost crashing back down. And I just want to give our listeners a chance to give us a call at 1-800-534-8255 or 949-8037, 949-6990, or you can WhatsApp us a message at 925-3261.
But do not WhatsApp asking, should I buy GameStop, because I'll get angrier.
Oh, yeah. So this seems like a sensitive subject for you, Simon. So we're saying no, don't buy.
No, it's just buy whatever you want, but be prepared to lose all your money. People should always have the choice to buy what they want to buy. And if you're buying it because you've read something on Reddit, because someone said they've made lots of money, good for you. I'm sure you consider that good research. Off you go. But I do want to say something really important about that. If you're following this Reddit thread and someone says, I recommend we all go and do this short squeeze, we put these hedge funds out of business, I've no objection to that. It seems like a clever idea. It seems a very clever idea. You've spotted a market anomaly where the hedge funds have borrowed lots of stock, price goes up, they need to pay more for it, and therefore you push the price up. Seems like a very clever idea. If you go and do that and you make money, good for you. If, on the other hand, you start contributing to that Reddit post and you start saying, let's all go and do this, be warned, you might end up in jail.
Oh, really?
That's a crime. That could well be a crime. So why is that? Why could that be a crime? Because what you have done could be considered market manipulation, because you've colluded with other people in order to change a price of a stock. You're only allowed to do that in your own firm. You're not allowed to collude with other investors. It is a crime.
So is this why Wall Street is crying and protesting?
Well, lots of people on Wall Street have got locked up for doing this in the past.
Okay.
Lots of people. And we have there are rules on Wall Street. Now, let's not pretend that people on Wall Street always follow the rules. They do not. So when they're crying and saying, I've lost money on it, okay, let's have some crocodile tears. Let's pretend to be sad and all the rest of it. But don't forget, if you are contributing to these sorts of posts, and there may well be not many listeners on this show who are doing it, but their children might be at universities or such like. If you are contributing that, so let's put a short squeeze on against, it is a real possibility that you could be committing a crime. Now, someone might say, but I'm sitting in my college dorm in the UK, or I'm sitting in front of my computer here in Cayman doing this. can't be arrested by the SEC for that. Slight problem with that argument. The SEC and the US government consider anything that transacts in US dollars to be a federal crime, so you can be arrested. And there was, in fact, 5 years ago, there was a teenager in London who kind of did sort of similar stuff, made many hundreds of millions of dollars, who was then extradited to the US to face jail for 70 years or something. That seems a little excessive for something which people were claiming had it was a victimless crime. And yet people in the US take these things very seriously. So if you want to follow these ideas and invest accordingly at your own risk and be prepared to lose all your money. But if you make lots of money, great, round of applause. But if you start inciting others to do these sorts of things and then find someone knocks at the door and arrests you when you step off a plane in Miami, don't come crying to me.
All right, no problem.
You are warned.
They are warned. Can you explain the short squeeze a little bit more, a little bit simpler?
It's not intuitively obvious what it means, and the explanation's quite technical. So I'll try and sort of not go through the explanation, but try and humanize it a little bit. Basically, imagine there's a company which has 100 shares. It's issued 100 shares, and each shareholder owns one of them. And suddenly, one shareholder starts to say, or a new shareholder comes along and says, I think this company is not worth what everyone else thinks it's worth. I think it's worth less. So if they buy the shares, they've increased demand. So the price goes up. That's not the way that they want to indicate that they think the company's worth less. They could just not buy it. That would be one easy way. And then if the company starts to go down because performance is bad, they won't have lost any money. Fabulous. But they actually think it's really bad. So instead of not buying it, they go and sell someone some shares, but they don't own any. So what they have to do is they have to borrow the share from somebody else because there's only 100 shares in issue. So they have to go to a shareholder, negotiate with them. Now, you might say no one goes and negotiates. What they do is they do it through their brokers. So through Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, all those people. They go to the banks and say, I want to borrow some of these shares and then I'm going to sell them. So suddenly they borrowed someone's shares and sold them. Okay, so what happens next? What happens if the price goes up? They've sold the shares, which they don't own, so they have to buy them at then the higher price. So if the price falls, they've sold the shares at, say, $10, the price falls to $5, they buy it back at $5, and they've already sold it at $10, so they've made a $5 profit. If the share goes to 15, remember they sold it at 10, they've then got to buy it back. They don't own it, they've got to settle this. And settlement takes a couple of days, so they don't have to buy it back at 15. So if you push the price higher on somebody who has shorted a lot of shares, and in this case, as you correctly said, the hedge fund, and I think there were more than one hedge funds involved, had shorted more than the entire number of shares outstanding, so you start pushing the price up, they lose an incredible amount of money. So that's basically what happened, is people going out and shorting securities and therefore having to pay a higher price because the share price has gone up, and they sold a share at $6. It's suddenly worth $400. That's a lot. And the market cap of the company where they'd shorted was, say, 100 million. Multiply those numbers out, they can lose a heck of a lot of money.
Right, which is what happened in this scenario.
Yeah,
with
because if you invest $10 million in a company and you short it and it quintuples, you've lost 5 times your money. Okay, if you invest $10 million in a company and you've just bought the shares, just like a normal person might do, and it goes to zero, you've lost $10 million. You've not lost any more than you invested. But someone who shorts can win much more than they invest, and someone who, but also can obviously lose a lot more than they've invested. And then people start playing around with options, which really screws things up, which we don't want to go into.
Oh, because I was going to say, what are options when stocks are shorted? But
yeah,
perhaps we won't go into that.
Well, no. So the problem with options is that it's, in a sense, it's a what we call a leveraged bet on exactly the same scenario. So an option is not, you're not buying the share. So there's still only 100 shares. You're buying an option to buy the share. Well, if you have an option to buy the share, that means you, at some point in the future, you will buy it. So suddenly someone else has got to sell it to you, but the price continues going up. And so the person who sold the shares suddenly keeps finding the price ratcheting even higher and higher. So it's just an even more leveraged. It makes the whole system much more leveraged and much more volatile than otherwise it might ordinarily be. But that's only in this particular scenario. Most of the time, having options and having shorting is a very good way for the market to become much more efficient. As I said to you, if half the people in the world thought a company was worth more than it currently is, those people might buy it. if half the people thought it was worth less than it currently is, they may not buy it. But that may not mean the company will go down in price because there's no selling pressure. So what shorting does is it causes people to start to sell something, which means that the market then settles on what the right price is, because you've got people expressing a sale as well as people expressing a buy preference, and so you get a more efficient market. GameStop was quite an unusual situation because it wasn't traded very much. The shorts had, as you say, more than 100% of the shares, so it was quite unusual. That doesn't typically happen in most well-functioning share price environments.
And it would be safe to say that's, due to all of this influence on social media, that thread that became quite influential, the Roaring Kitty influencer, I guess we could call him, that had all of his videos and so-called investment ideas with GameStop, that did play a major role in changing the market for that week. People are often people are easily influenced by personality. Throughout history, we know of that. I'm going to say Elon Musk.
Yes.
This week, a day or 2 days ago, said, I'm going to stay off of Twitter because of something he had said on Clubhouse, which is a newer app in the last year. Yep. And apparently whatever he had said had made things go crazy.
Oh, and do you know what?
I'm going to stay off Twitter because I have the power to completely change whatever it was that he was discussing at that moment.
Like him or loathe him, he's quite a modest fellow, isn't he? But I think what's fascinating about that story, Clubhouse, is that a lot of people on Twitter or Reddit or whatever it might have been read that and thought, we must buy this company, Clubhouse. And they went and bought a company with a ticker symbol, Club. Only problem was, and it went up, I think, 90%. Only problem was, it wasn't the company he was talking about. Because the company he was talking about was private and it didn't have any shares issued to the public. So there are, as the old adage goes, when you play poker, which of course no one in Cayman would do, right?
No.
Not for money anyway. But as the old adage goes, if you're in the room playing poker and you don't know who the sucker is, it's probably you. If you're following these things and you don't realise what's going on, you're probably the one that's going to lose some money. So be ultra careful. I mean, perhaps the best sort of story I can tell about this is that I've got Robinhood. I think is a very clever application that allows people to trade stocks and shares and other such things, and I have nothing against it whatsoever. It helps democratize buying shares. It's free for people to trade, although there are some hidden costs that people should be more aware of. However, when all this kicked off and people were getting exuberant about doing this to GameStop and others and other companies, there was a huge surge in popularity of the Robinhood Society, which involved Robin Hood, Maid Marian in Nottingham, England.
Yes.
Now,
people were following the wrong thing.
Exactly.
Yes.
So if you're that dumb that you're going to follow the wrong thing, for goodness sake, don't go and buy shares in in whatever it is that's being promoted. If you can't even get the right society, don't compound your error by being completely stupid.
Don't go buy stocks if you're following even the wrong.
Yeah, if you think a mythical character from the 1600s or wherever, and by the way, the tulip thing did happen in the 1600s in the Netherlands. I just looked that up.
Okay.
But if you're following the Robin Hood Society with Maid Marian, Robin Hood, Men in Tights, and all the rest of it, you've probably gone to the wrong place. But if that is what you think it is that you're following, and you then go and buy the shares, definitely don't come and complain to me. I will laugh at you if you lose your money. I really will.
Right, do your proper research. Although the Robinhood.com online trading platform, it's free. Mm-hmm. Nothing's ever really free. Somebody still has to own that and operate that. So it's like, who's really, it's two guys from Stanford apparently who started this, but how are they funded?
And so the way they make money is by, this is complicated. This is somewhat complicated stuff, but what there's no commission when you buy a share or sell a share on there. What they do is they sell your order to Wall Street. So Wall Street says, we'd like to know when people are buying something because that's helpful information, because then that means the price is likely to go up. So what Robinhood does, it says, now, at the risk of, to avoid the risk of being sued for getting it wrong, this is my understanding and I'm totally willing to be corrected on it, but they sell the order flow. So they say to brokers on Wall Street, we will give you all the trade orders that we receive so you can see them and you can see what's going on. Now, the only reason someone would pay for that is not because they're altruistic. They'd pay for it because they themselves can make money. So when Wall Street was claiming, oh, this is terrible for our business, these guys are killing us, we're losing money, that's not true remotely, because some people on Wall Street are making a fortune because they're seeing these orders before they're placed. So people on Wall Street some people on Wall Street are hurting, but others are making stack loads of money out of these retail people who think they're beating Wall Street. They're not beating Wall Street. They're just being deluded into thinking they are.
Oh, interesting. All right. So Wall Street protesting, it's somewhat justified because, as you had mentioned, a lot of people have gone to jail already for this.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big Security Exchange Commission issue.
Yeah, it should be.
Don't go on these threads and suggest, hey, we should go, short this, or we should go buy all these stocks.
If you write on a public thread, which people then follow, let's put the short squeeze on hedge fund XYZ, and people follow that, it seems to me as though that would be securities fraud and market manipulation. And if you do it to a sufficient level of attention that it garners attention of regulators, don't be surprised to be slapped with a lawsuit.
It's interesting because what then at that point is considered manipulation? Is it, I'm just suggesting that we could try this, as opposed to let's go do this? It's going to be a framing of words, which then
sure,
that's how you argue it in
court, and you'll spend millions of dollars on your lawyers arguing that point.
Yes.
Yeah, so good luck to you if that's the nuance you want to get involved with. Then great, go and have fun in court and explain the nuances of the English language and should versus would and might and could and possibly and all the rest of it. Good luck to you. Not my cup of tea. What I would suggest is if you think these recommendations are solid, based on good research or good ideas or whatever it is that floats your boat, then go and invest in them as you wish. But for goodness sake, be very, very careful about suggesting to do these sorts of things, because it seems to me that somebody's going to get their wrists more than slapped by regulators and could well end up in jail.
Interesting. That brings me to my favorite Caribbean proverb. What comes easy doesn't last, and what lasts does not come easy. So do your research for sure.
Yep,
know what you're getting into. Don't just follow the flow.
That's a bit too profound for me, but okay.
No, that's not too difficult to grasp right there. Is there anything else you wanted to share on your thoughts with this GameStop?
No, it's not just GameStop. So this is spread now to other areas. So there have been many other companies this has gone on with. And then a couple of days ago, it spread into silver, the metal. And people were bidding up the price or raising the price of silver for similar sort of reasons. Someone was going on Reddit and saying, let's hit this, let's kill all these hedge funds who are short silver, whatever the argument might be. And this shouldn't be surprising to anyone, but let me try and tone down my sarcasm. It became somewhat clear that Wall Street was aware that Wall Street Bets was something, and that of the couple of million people that might have joined, some of them may have been from Wall Street hedge funds, and then started to infiltrate that with their own recommendations that would have helped their own portfolios. Right. So if you think that all these recommendations are purer than the driven snow, then look, you're the sucker in the poker room, because there are now 2 or 3 million people following this thread, not all of whom have your best motives at heart, some of whom are doing exactly what Wall Street people have got put in jail for doing in the past, boiler room tactics, pumping their own books illegally. There are many rules that prevent spreading information or rumours about companies which you own as a portfolio. And Reddit has seemingly created an environment where those rules no longer don't seem to apply. That's not the way the regulators tend to operate. They don't tend to say, well, it's okay if this place doesn't exist beyond our control, because who really cares? Seemingly quite a lot of people care now, because it's been talked about on radio shows, TV shows, it's been talked about at the White House, it's been talked about in the corridors of the regulators. Be very careful if you start posting on these things. You will risk going to jail.
All right. Thank you, Simon. Any
Pleasure.
final thoughts from you, or we're good?
By all means, go and join the Robin Hood Society. It's a fun thing, but don't trade stocks based on stuff you don't understand.
And Robin Hood Society being on the Twitter Robin Hood, or
I don't know, just the one that's the fictional character who took from the rich, give to the poor, and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
No, again, nothing wrong with Robin Hood the app. It's a good way of investing. It's a good cheap way of investing. It doesn't cost you anything, but there's no such thing, as the old adage goes, as a free lunch. So be mindful that there's always something behind that. And just be super careful about spreading market rumours. It is a crime. Be super careful about influencing people to do stuff when you already own something without full disclosure. It is a crime. Don't think that crimes don't exist just because they're on Reddit.
Right. And as that old adage goes as well, despise the free lunch, right? And I know, I would say we're safe to end this conversation now. And, Bitcoin might be a more sure way for you. The look that you just
gave. Is this being streamed on YouTube?
It absolutely is.
Well,
so
we'll
I
have to go back and look at my face on that one.
I know.
Yeah, because
I had to plug that in there because I know you're not necessarily a fan of Bitcoin. So that's a whole other conversation for another time. But
that's true. That's something we have theorized and moralized over on Money Sense, and
absolutely.
I've not yet been sufficiently. I'm persuaded it's a valuable tool. I just don't understand why it's worth 40,000 versus 4.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon. And
absolute pleasure.
Again, please tune in to Money Sense in the Morning with Simon Caudry. And who's joining you tomorrow?
Tony Travers. We are going to dissect whether Cayman has an economic future, or whether the end is nigh.
Okay. Oh, all right. That seems gloomy. All right. Join us for Money Sense again tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. and you can hear more from Simon. And you'll be back with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks tomorrow on Talk Today. And that's about it. Thanks for joining us on Talk Today. This afternoon, I'm Kathy Miller.